This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell on a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how does the army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people have so much to gain and have such a material motive for putting me in a position I'm in. They'll never let the true facts come of their boards to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the grotto leader? Don't remember the name. You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
now these people are in very high positions, yeah.
Chat. Okay, I see. All right, so now we just wait, I guess, for people to show up. Hopefully people will show up.
Oh, there's definitely going to be some people, I think.
Should we do the intro to the show?
Let me find Factory Beach. I wish there's got to be a way to play the song.
We got some people watching
on YouTube.
In the YouTube thing. Yeah. I don't know if we have any callers, but we do have.
I just posted. Oh, 2 people entered the waiting room.
All
right. Well, I guess that's enough.
Yeah,
so
why
far.
not?
Here, let's to meeting group chat.
There might be some technical processing things like last time as we figure things out as we go.
I would say that is probably the case. But right now, I think it's working. I think we are live on Patreon.
Wow, we have 28 people watching us live. It's pretty crazy.
Okay, all right.
Kind of an exhilarating feeling. I guess this is why people like streaming.
This is what the people live. They live for the thrill. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I think
it's almost like hanging out with 28 real people.
I know. So I guess.
I mean, I know you're all real people, but you know what I mean.
Exactly. So anybody that is in the grotto right now, I'm posting the Zoom link in our call-in live chat channel, and I'm also going to post it in the main grotto right now. And you can also find it on the direct Patreon live stream link in the description. So if you want to participate in the crazy YouTube chat, you can watch it directly on YouTube live stream, which is unlisted. So please don't share it on Twitter. Though maybe if we're feeling spicy later, maybe we will. All right. I'll turn off this diegetic music on my phone.
I can't hear the diegetic music. No.
Really?
I wonder if anybody else can.
You can't hear that?
No. Maybe it's Zoom audio
you know
filtering.
What? It's the Zoom audio filtering. Wow. I hate that shit. Is crazy.
All right.
That's why we don't have a video from one because I forgot to turn it off on Zoom, and so it very oddly cut out all the music in my video, and it's just me talking over it, and then dead, no laughing, no crowd reaction, just dead silence. And then
the person, someone says that I feel like such a boomer. I have no idea what.
Wow, this chat is flying. This chat's flying. I just saw it fly for the first time. What up, Drew Time? All right, we got some homies in here.
Yeah,
right.
we have no idea what we're doing either. You don't know how to get in the Discord. There should be a link to the Discord in the email that you received when you signed up.
I feel like I want to just paste that in the art, the banner art of our Patreon page, because Patreon is so bad at telling you where it is that I feel like that is probably the most asked question. No knock on anybody that's asked it, but I feel like it is inscrutably weird, where you have to go to find it to get in.
Someone says we sound different live. How could that be?
It's probably the noise compression on Zoom, because they usually hear us on our GarageBand. I mean, I could, I could switch to.
Well, do I sound more annoying or less annoying?
Let me see right here. Auto low. What happens if I do low? Do I sound any different, dear listeners?
You sound different to me.
Oh, okay. I switch mine to low. I think that's better. Yeah, we don't need this hardcore
I mean, it's
mega
not that
conversion.
much different, but yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you sounded better before, to be honest, or the quality sounded better.
Oh God, now
But-
you're making me second guess myself. All right, well,
Yeah, I know. We
I
don't
guess we can-
we don't have the cameras on.
should we flip on? We were gonna flip on when we started.
Yeah, we were
Oh,
going
yeah.
to. I don't know. Yeah, like I'll briefly
Well,
switch
we're gonna flip
very
on just so you
briefly.
know who we are. We're doing the the whatever. What up, everybody? What up, Grotto? What it do? Extremely
Yeah.
present and vigilant right now. Wow, yeah, this
Yeah.
is fun. This
All
is
right.
fun.
So do we want to let someone in from the waiting room to like?
I
actually
think
do this
so. Yeah.
episode?
Do we have a line of people that were the first? I guess first of all, like, welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 200. This is our 200th episode, though, as you like to remind everybody, not numerically, not actually, but because we had so many like AB episodes, we're really probably around 230, 240. But nonetheless, we're gonna have like sort of the ritual milestone today. It feels like something special to reflect on, and just like we did in episode 100, we're launching like the Art Bell late night live chat. kind of
Yeah,
feature.
exactly. It's almost
Mhm.
like we're in the Arizona desert right now, even though we're actually like on different coasts on Zoom.
Right. We are actually
Um,
coast to coast. Like we're on.
Yeah,
both
true. We're
coasts
the real
now.
coast to
Yeah.
coast if you think about it.
And we are coast to coast. Even though coast to coast is in LA now. I just learned. I didn't realize. But anyways,
Of course it
yeah.
is.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I know.
There's
George
nothing
Nori.
secure anymore.
No, I was listening to Coast to Coast for the first time in a long time on the night before July 4th, and it was there was like a 10-minute segment for the guy who was like warming up for George Nori talking about OnlyFans, but it sounded like a SpawnCon. You know how like people start talking about Dollar Shave Club, but like they're hyping it, but trying to make it sound like an organic convo. It was like that, but about OnlyFans for like over 10 minutes. It was the strangest thing I'd ever heard. But I was like, yeah, you just heard like, you can become a millionaire overnight. It's like it's pretty crazy, and you don't even have to show all your wares, you could just sell feet pics. It was like I don't know what's going on in radio land because, we're podcasters, we don't know. But anyways, we're here today to talk to you, the Grotto. And I guess as it turns out, there's already 11 of you in the waiting
Congrats to
room.
Zimmy Blad for being
Congrats.
13 months
Shout out
meth
Zimmy
free.
Blad. That's right. We love to see it. We love to see it on Hawk. All right. So let's see. I knew he was
Yeah.
wearing a tank top. It's very
Let's,
hot here in LA. Okay. So now I'm going to turn my video off for a second. No, it's okay. I'm not scared. Let's see. Who is, I guess, is the line like, do we know who came in first?
Hasn't been long for a while. That's an old picture. If you've seen that picture of me with long hair, I haven't had that for a while.
Oh,
In
yeah,
fact,
you
my
did-
hair's
you cut
pretty
your hair.
long now. Generally, like much longer than I usually keep it. But yeah, like that. I always think it's a big compliment. People say we look like they imagined, because I feel like usually when like people see podcasters, they like, are like horrified by what they look like.
Yeah,
and it's just
yeah,
like,
no, it's usually a
so,
thing. Yeah.
or they always imagine them
take
to
it.
look like pretty good, so I feel
Uh-huh.
like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just sound annoying. And so people imagine me looking annoying. But I always think of that as a compliment and I'll continue to do so. So anyway, let's do the actual thing, like the whole.
Right. Okay. So I guess with that, I was wondering who is in the waiting room for, is it top to bottom in terms of like who joined first? I want to honor whoever joined first. I think Dylan
I
Welsh.
don't know if it
I think
is.
Dylan Welsh, perhaps. Dylan can tell us maybe, but I feel like we're gonna start at the top of the list and work our way down, right? And I don't know. I guess it's gonna be vibes based. We're not experienced radio call-in people, so obviously, this is SJ long form. So we're not gonna cut you off after 2 minutes, but let's also.
Denim
we're gonna-
Daphne, I wish I could grow a beard. I would if
Oh,
I
yeah.
could, but like I really can't. It doesn't like look good. I know it's like
Yeah.
so not to have a beard, and people have like dragged me to that before. It's like, where's Colin's beard? It's like because I can't can't grow a good beard. So like no one, like it's not Sunnut to have the kind of beard that I can grow. It's like, you know, you're supposed to like not look like weird and have this patchy, disgusting beard.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know, without further ado, Louis, I think we got a caller on the line. I'm going to hit admit for the first time out of the waiting room, and let's see what happens. Do we have Dylan on the line? Call it. I feel like you're better than I am at Zoom.
Do you feel that way? Okay,
well,
wait, maybe. I think this
where
person's like muted, and we need to like unmute.
Yeah, where's
them.
the unmute? Okay, host tools. You know what? Okay, unmute. Now you have the ability to unmute yourself. I've granted it.
All right.
Hello.
Hey, what's up,
Hi.
Dylan? How's it going?
Can you all hear me?
I can.
Oh, all right,
Okay,
awesome.
Can the chat hear? Beautiful. I can't see you. I don't know if you're on video.
Yeah, I don't have a camera, so.
Oh, it's okay. That's okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, no pressure here. No pressure here. We can stay concealed.
Yeah.
So, how's it going, Dylan? Welcome to Subliminal Jihad.
This is awesome. This is crazy. 200 episodes, man. That's wild.
Yeah. In fact,
Thanks, man.
I think we said this before, but this is only our numerical 200th episode. It's not like our actual 200th episode. Like,
I did just
for a
yeah,
while
explain that.
Yeah, for a while we were enumerating them with or like alphabetizing them or we had a different like system. But yeah, anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's up?
I don't mean to fanboy or anything, but I love your guys' show. It's awesome. I've been listening to it for years. It's really good.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate
man.
that very much. Yeah.
Really fun stuff. I go to sleep with it on all the time. A lot of people do. It's awesome.
Word. Yeah,
nice.
That's great to hear. Yeah,
I think it's a good time of day to listen.
It's very gratifying to hear like positive things about the show, like for sure.
No, it definitely is. It definitely is. It's really nice.
Especially I came out of like the Cumtown world and I kind of moved over here a little bit. This is much better, much better.
Bless
scene.
your soul. Bless your soul.
A lot nicer, a lot better. Gotta say.
Word. Everything has its time and place, I guess. But yeah, no, glad you made it over into our neck of the woods.
It's nice.
It is crazy that it's been 4 years. It's been an interesting 4 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, I kind of been listening to you guys throughout like all of my college, so it's been nice.
Word.
Yeah, I just graduated, so.
Nice.
Sick.
Congrats.
Sick.
Kind of yeah.
Word.
Undergrad sucks, but
Did you get to study any
grad school also sucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if you're planning on doing that, but if you are, my advice to you is think about that very carefully, depending on what subject you're in. But
I kind of doxed my name on here, so I don't know if I'm gonna be going anywhere now. But
yeah.
We can cut out your last name when in the future recording.
I'd appreciate that. That'd
no
be
problem.
Okay, yeah,
we'll do first names from now on. I'm not going to read the full legal government names of everybody. Yeah, because I guess it's a lot to change your Zoom name just for one call-in show. But no, we really appreciate that. Is there anything on your mind, Dylan? Today on this strange
I've been racking
7-7?
my brain. First of all, I knew episode 200 would be a call-in episode, so I've been thinking about a question for months. But the only thing I could come up with is I kind of want to know, like, what's the SJ opinion on Gen Z? Because I feel like I'm one of the younger listeners here in the podcast sphere, and I just want to. It feels like kind of a sus generation to me, and everyone's kind of fucked in the head a little bit. I just want to know what the SJ take is. Especially from college. I'm sure you probably have some students that are around my age.
Yeah, but I like my students, and I think that I don't think that Gen Z is a more sus generation than our generation or any other generation. Boomers are incredibly sus. Millennials are incredibly sus. Gen X, as we were just talking about, is really sus.
Oh yeah.
So I don't really think that Gen Z is more sus than other generations per se. Like, yes, it's sus, but millennials were like a huge disappointment, I think, to every millennial. Yeah. We like a lot of this kind of things that were talked about that people say about Gen Z were said about us at one time. Both the negative things and like the positive things, like that we're gonna we're the new greatest generation.
Use technology to save the world, but also you're lazy and you don't want to work, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you look at like the Strauss-Howe like generational theory, like millennials were supposed to be like the
World War II generation.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were supposed to be like a civic generation that like uplifts the world and like redeems society or whatever. And like, yeah, that obviously I think did not happen. Like millennials just completely suck and drop the ball. But anyway,
there's still time if we can put down our Funko Pops long enough to.
I think that Gen Z is not sus in and of itself. I think that Gen Z is in the crosshairs of like a lot of sus things happening in society that like are I think that you got I don't blame Gen Z at all. I think that like there's just a lot of like murkiness to navigate for Gen Z. I don't know, Dimitri, what do you think?
I would almost describe every Gen Zer, at least, well, most of them have access to the internet, as a targeted individual, broadly defined, in a way. Like they're the first. I mean, that's not to say the boomers weren't targeted by TV and music and stuff, and millennials weren't, didn't get hooked into the internet pretty early, but Gen Z is the first like fully immersed internet generation that just grew up with it as like a normal aspect of like existence, and like having no memory of the before, and then having to like grow up and learn these like strange new ever shifting rules of like behavior and conduct and like how you carry yourself like online, and like have like a kind of this kind of avatar personality and stuff. I mean, that's just a recipe for like I don't know, like mental health like challenges, I guess, like, across like wide groups of people. And millennials got hit with that too, but we still do have this like millennials have this kind of like generation that sort of got to exist a little bit on both sides of like, I think definitely for me as like in being born in like 87, I would say my early childhood is the kind of like the Simpsons utopia of the 90s where, like shit didn't really start taking like a truly dark turn, even though there was a lot of incredibly dark shit happening in the 90s and the 2000s. But I'd say it wasn't until like 2008 that it became like it occurred, I think, to a lot of like millennials that like, oh, our economic fortunes are going to just be like worse than like all of our boomer parents. Like we're like categorically like kind of fucked, and it's like not going to get, it's not like and then the Zoomers got like a better crack at things. Like, no, it's just going to keep getting worse. So now we were right there at like the crest of like the 80s, 90s, like, yeah, America, like the one world superpower, like we did it. Like, and everything was just like chill. There's an ambient, like everything's going to work out. Like, don't worry about it, because the boomers had this like relative, I'm talking kind of economically, in so many ways, like this very easy ride. They were easy riders, you could say. And I think it took time for like all of society to like sort of catch up to like the new normal and the reality. I think that's a lot of like the collective anguish of the millennial generation, is like realizing that like the radical cool like 90s like chill culture where like you could be a slacker and just like have a job and just like buy a house and like not really try that hard and just like watch TV and like have nobody lay a finger in your butterfinger and just like consume, like consume stuff and like make your whole identity about like your, consumption habits, et cetera, et cetera. I guess like people were kind of acted like that would last forever. But I think 2008 was a kind of like I think we'll look back at that as like a very important shock point. And then of course every Zoomer came of age like pretty much after like the Great Recession, or like grew up as a child in it. So you guys, I think, more colored by like loss and like the slow collapse of institutions, and then things like Trump and like everything else like happening. It's just been like a slide into like chaos, basically. I think most of your adolescent and young adult lives, and it certainly doesn't seem to be getting any better. But I can appreciate to some extent like Gen Zers, because I've like become I've gotten to know some Gen Zers who are like listeners to the show, and ones that I will say that I feel like it could just be the times, but I feel like Gen Zers, some of them are much more like kind of woke in like the SJ way, or like noited than I feel like I was at their age, or like anybody else I knew was at that age. Like millennials took some time, I think, because of that just gloss of like, even with the Iraq war and all this other shit, it's like, yeah, well, but you could just like go to the mall and like, I don't know, like get a job, and it's like not that hard, and like, just like all that kind of shit. But I
mean, what's really the thing is the internet. Like,
right.
Some Zoomers like literally do not remember like a time before the internet, which like, even though like we were like pretty young, like, and like for a long time, like when we were young, like the internet was not like what it is now. it was pretty late in our lives, all things considered, that the internet really became like the internet as we know it. Like I remember, like when I
college,
first,
when it really,
yeah,
like, well, it was a thing in high school, but really
YouTube was like
college.
barely like getting going, like when we like entered college. You know, like, and I remember people like would watch YouTube and it'd be the dumbest stuff in the world to be like, you know, peanut butter jelly time, like that type of stuff. Like that's like what people would watch on the internet, or like YMTND, or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
like,
YTMND, yeah, meme pages, like
people
E-Bombs
like
World, something
actually
awful.
like looked at that and like spent time like on those sites, and like that was what the internet like was, or like 4chan, you know.
The different message boards. Like I do vaguely remember that architecture. Like there are things I remember about the internet as like a middle schooler that are like they're lost forever to time. And like, but like I have some of my friends talk about this sometimes because like it's like, do you remember when we were in fantasy pro wrestling online, like wrestling leagues, and we were like, but they were like role playing based on like message boards, and like you would write like your kind of like your work or whatever, like your monologue on stage where you'd be like, fuck you, blah blah blah, like I'm gonna be the hardcore champion, and then like the admins would like write up how the match would go, and like whoever wrote like a more rizzed up kind of like promo for themselves would like win and be like awarded the title. And I feel like I did that for like a year, and it's like I did so much like writing on these like weird message boards, and I have to say, you know, I was hardcore champion and intercontinental champion at one point, so, and tag team champion. Nice. So I was pretty hardcore. I
feel like I did something like that too, like writing like things like that on the internet, like about like fights, but it was based on like how creatively you could write it.
Yeah.
Like that was also like a weird thing that I was into, like as a kid. I did it like, and that like who does that now? Like no one. Like, well, that's like basically what our actual like political system has become. Like that's basically like yeah,
it is crazy. Yeah. Just how things have evolved. I remember when there was a joke that like on CNN around like 2010, all the anchors started being like, oh, something's happening. Like, let's see what they're saying on Twitter. And we were all like, LOL, like that's so ridiculous. Like, like what the fuck? They're just like not going to do real reporting anymore, and they're just going to read like what people say on Twitter. It's like, oh no, that's exactly what they're going to do, and like that's going to become the news. Yeah. Like that's and then when Trump got elected, that literally was the news. Like 5 years later.
I was just thinking, and like it's also weird, like a lot of Zoomers don't like really fully remember 9/11. Like I was just thinking the other day, like remember when like Howard Dean made that like weird screaming noise and it like destroyed his political career? Yeah,
we talked about that before.
Now we just had like and the presidential debates and stuff, like those are like big things, and that's like where you like kind of met the candidates and like got to know that like who they were. Like it wasn't this like constant churning like there was a 24/7 news cycle, you know, but it wasn't like what it is in this like hyper mediated landscape at all. Like it's bizarre.
It's just so hyper mediated, and Gen Z is definitely in the crosshairs of it.
Yeah,
so,
and then we have like you can say like, you know, I did not have sex with a porn star like on this presidential debate stage, and like that's actually like not career killing. Like you can actually come out and like win. Having said that, like that was inconceivable when we were young. Like
or just like collapsing.
And I still remember
dimension.
a lot of people,
and then being like, "I'm not quitting." Like, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I still remember a lot of people who were like really like that I knew who were like really like bought into like this, you know, the sort of media landscape, like the system. Like I remember like when the like grab them by the, you know, like the Trump sort of sexual assault video like leaked. I remember like some like, you know, lib people I knew who like ended up going to like Yale Law School and things like that. I remember like I'm actually talking about one person. I'm not talking about people anymore, but there were people with this sentiment. But I remember in particular one person posted like a GIF of like a song from Hamilton where they're all singing around about like how someone's never going to be president, you know, and like it was like, you know, like never going to be president, but of course he was president. And I think that that's like, there's a lot of people in the millennial generation who like weren't and still aren't able to like process it. Not to say that like we are like, but I think that there's some who like really can't deal with it and just really like are, but I don't know.
The normie like impulse is still quite strong with a lot of millennials in a way that I can't relate to at this point in my life, of just like, okay, like you think everything's like pretty good, except for a couple things you're really like mad about, but like otherwise like the system's like pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Gen Z is more apt to get upset about things and be a lot more passionate. Like even like in college, like I was in the Students for Justice in Palestine organization,
Oh,
and
cool.
that was just a hotbed of leftist infighting. It was pretty bad, actually.
I can see that. That's another thing too. I have to say that is very fascinating that I noticed about Zoomers who were like just coming out of college in like the late 2010s is that y'all. I think 2008 had something to do with this. Is that I feel like Khalid, you can correct me if you see Khalid, you went on to grad school and stayed in academia, but I noped out. I matriculated out in 2009, like right after the financial crisis. I feel like I did not get this kind of a fabled hard lefty. It was certainly left leaning, but like I feel like there wasn't a lot of like theory like thrown like all this stuff that was like reading like Adorno and like all this other shit. I did when I was like 23 and 24 on my own time because I was hearing about people like you call it who were like in grad school and I saw people on Twitter talking about it. But it was I don't know. It's just because I wasn't in like a straight like liberal arts like major, but I know like those things were taught, but I felt like the everyday student being like super aware of like I don't know like Adorno or like even like Foucault or Deleuze or something like that was like I don't know, it seemed like undergrads had no fucking clue and like didn't care and like weren't, besides like hating Bush kind of near the end, like didn't really care that much about like
you had
politics.
to be kind of like a theory cell. Well, that's the thing. Like I remember like, and I was also like I went to meetings like for like a lot of those like students versus in Palestine or like sort of left wing groups on our campus. And like they were also like just riven by infighting, but like also like no one was in them. Like, or they were much smaller.
That's the thing. There was just nothing going on.
And like people would like laugh at them and be like, "This is ridiculous," when they would do things.
Exactly.
Like
even the idea of like a DSA thing being like a cool hipster place to hang out was totally not a thing before like 2016. Like in 2010, 2011, if you're in the DSA, it's like, LOL. Okay, I think I had one friend from high school like joined it for a little while, but like it seemed like more like what it was at the time, which was like this weird little like Trotskyist, like the pro-Vietnam War ass like appendage of the Democratic Party that like, but back then also, the other thing that's changed a lot is like, it really is different now that like the term socialist is used now in a way that it was not in the 2000s. Like it was like, that was such a spicy kind of like disqualifying term. I would see it because I grew up near Berkeley. And like there were, the RevComs and other people like that there that, had like, I remember, I think I've said this before in high school, the revolutionary books, RevCom store just had like a massive portrait of Stalin and Mao and Lenin. Like, and, I was a little like lib teenager who like, of course had been fed on a diet of lies like all of us and was kind of like, oh, I'm interested in this socialism stuff. Like, why do you have like a Stalin portrait? They're like, actually, he did a lot for education and stuff like that. I don't know. It's like, I mean, I could defend Stalin better than they did.
I remember being surprised myself that like you had like a picture of like Lenin and Stalin like on your wall like in
college. I did. I always had like a soft spot for Lenin. I think because I bought some Lenin books in high school, and I was like, I like this. I got Imperialism when I was like 17 or 18, and I was like, oh, this motherfucker's spitting. Like actually, like. I kind of, it was easy to kind of back then. You could kind of be like
chat just
a
said
Trotskyist.
That you were around for Vietnam. No,
You could be a Trotskyist, or you could be like a Marxist humanist. You could be like a Zizekian motherfucker, is what you could be in the 2000s, like resurrecting Lenin in order to bury him.
I remember we like had this big class for all the freshmen at our school that like played us like videos of Zizek. Do you remember this?
I didn't have to take that because I was a transfer, so I didn't have to.
Yeah.
You got wait, you got forced to watch Zizek videos? That's so funny.
Yeah, we watched him like paddling around in a boat sniffing about ideology because we like it was awful. Yeah, it was for like people who were in the arts, the School of the Arts, and like so it was like a special like a lecture session of like the seminar we had to take about like how to write essays about art. And
my God.
like so it was this big lecture where everybody in the whole School of the Arts, every freshman went there and they would play movies, and like one of them that they just played was Zizek. And I remember thinking like, who the hell is this guy? And people were like laughing at like his little bits and stuff, and I was like,
oh, they loved it.
Yeah, but
he is. I think my hot take is that he is actually like the I mean, he's not literally. You could say the Yippies or the Merry Pranksters, but like I think in the modern sense, especially one with like a patina of academic credibility, like he's kind of the first modern dirtbag leftist like archetype. And I feel like so many people are like influenced by his vibe and like his just like his prankster-ish way of like, always like contradicting himself and being silly and perverted and like, blah, blah, blah. So like shit like that was what you were exposed to. I took a class on socialist theory my senior year, which actually happened during the financial crisis. And I had this old, like, big bearded, what was his name? Bart Ehrman, I want to say. Elman? I'm missing it right now. Famously gave Sean Hannity like a C- in the 80s when he took his socialist class. And then he invited the professor on Fox News years later. And he started like yelling, they yelled at each other or something. But he was this old Marxist. But he actually ended up really like teaching us way more about like early 19th century, like Saint-Simon and kind of like stuff like that than like Marx. Like he did get into Marx, but like Lenin, Stalin, Mao, like he didn't get into it all, which is like, that's a little bit disappointing. But I could see like for an undergrad class, like you want to give them like the fun philosophical, like idealistic guys that wrote about this stuff. And like, maybe the professor did like self-identify as a Marxist Leninist, but he might have been a little more, I don't want to say he was a trot because that would be mean if he's not, but I feel like I didn't get like a Grover Furr kind of experience from him as far as I can recall. That would have to come later through my own reading. But I think it's changed now where like, I think just ambiently like a Gen Z college student, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is just much more political than like the average millennial.
Yeah, it's even like I was surprised how many professors' offices I walked into and they had big Lenin posters up on the wall and shit. And that's in like a tiny little Midwest liberal arts school. And that was just really surprising to me. I think it's just ubiquitous now,
Yeah. And it kind of makes sense, like hide out from like the like ever more brutal like capitalist economy. Like you can kind of it's one of the few places where you can kind of hide out. I mean, Michael Parenti sort of hid out for years, right? Grover Furr hid out for years. But I think there are more people like that now. And I mean, there's also like I think a popularized effort from more of these institutions to kind of like co-opt some of that, like because we are living in like an era of like declining fortunes and increasing chaos on multiple levels. So like of course there's gonna be radicalism, but like I think there's like kind of getting out in front of it a little bit and like allowing a little bit of it to happen, so then you can kind of like just like massage it a little bit and like contain it.
I mean, I think there's two phenomena. Like, I think that on one hand, there kind of is like a return to Marx, like like theoretically, like in the academy and the humanities. So you see older professors who like maybe are into that, or maybe always have been, and who like depending on what their age is, like maybe they, now they're like have tenure and they've always been to that type of thing. So there's definitely types like that. But I also think that like, there's two factors. One is that the academic job market has just completely collapsed and is like a million times worse than it was like even after 2008. It's just like very, very bad now. So that I think like does like radicalize people, but also like it also like creates a huge like choke point where like only like it's like the people who get like jobs that are permanent like and are actually on the tenure track, like even people who get jobs that are permanent period, like it's really competitive. And I think that you'll kind of see, I don't know, I think it's sometimes the people, like if there's any reason to discount someone, if they got one apostrophe out of place, then it can be pretty hard. But like but I also think that can like radicalize a lot of people too. So I think that some of the like the mass like contingent class in academia, tend to be more radical and more have like nothing to lose, but
totally. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. I'm probably gonna head out here in a minute.
Word, yeah, we should sure. Actually, yeah.
Well, we're gonna
great talking to you, and thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate it.
Sorry to like go off on a long tangent. I wanted to like ask you for more input.
Awesome.
That's like kind of what we do.
Yeah. Anybody else, feel free to interrupt us. This is an interruption safe space, especially as it goes for us. We'll try not to interrupt anybody, but thank you very much, and I guess we will move on here to our next caller, Code.
Shout out Josh, shout out Nate. I'll see you guys later.
Whoop, whoop.
Shout out Josh and Nate. Yeah.
Code, are you there? Oh, I think maybe.
Yeah, it seems like we're got a connection. All right, yeah, there it goes.
I think so. Oh.
You're on mute. You can unmute yourself, I think.
I think you can unmute yourself.
All right, yeah, there we go. Oh, they just logged themselves out. So maybe we should go to somebody else.
Okay, I guess we're moving on here. We have normal Dr. Troy.
Spouter saying you guys look totally different than I thought you did. Well, that's rough though. In light of what I said earlier about that. All right, well, normal Dr. Troy.
All right. Do we have our next caller here?
We'll get you back in, Code. We won't forget you.
Hello.
But I know.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Yeah, sorry, I was muting my YouTube. Shout out Subliminal Jihad. Shout out Jimmy Fallon Gong. Rest in peace.
Hell yeah.
He's not actually dead. He's just retired.
He's retired. No, yeah. Just wanted to say, great show. Before I get into what I want to talk about.
Thank you.
Yeah, I work in a warehouse setting, unloading trucks. So yeah, I listen to a lot of it when I'm doing that. But I wanted to. So yeah, the anonymous name I went with is based off a character from the show Nip Tuck. It was an FX show.
Right, I remember it.
It's kind of sus. It's sus in a lot of ways. In some ways, it's kind of noited a little bit. Like it gets into like the intersection of quote unquote legitimate businesses and criminal enterprises and shit like that. But anyway, I wanted to talk about some South Florida susness. Maybe I didn't know what.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Is that cool? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm from Florida. I'm not from South Florida, but without going into too much, I went to a university in Florida, and I met a lot of people through that. So first, I wanted to talk about a guy who is from England, but he was born. Let's see. Let me pull up my shit. Damn, I don't have his birthday on here. He's like in his 50s or something, essentially. But he lived in Sarasota for a while. But pretty much he made a bunch of money in like the .com boom. His name's Robert Kurt Lomnitz. If you want to look him up at all. But so he made money in the .com boom, right? And then he lived in Florida for a while, doing hedge fund stuff and investment capital stuff. And he lived in a really sus art house, the house is like a piece of art essentially. Like when they tried to sell it, it was a whole thing in Sarasota, Florida. It was pretty sus. Wow. But pretty much he ended up divorcing his wife, and he moved to Thailand.
Okay.
And mind you, this is a British finance capitalist type guy, right? Moving to Thailand after living in Florida. And he's currently the president, I'm pretty sure, director of the Bangkok Venture Club. And he's the CIO at Expedite Capital Partners in Bangkok. So look into his family history a little bit. He has a brother, David Lomnitz, right? And they went to the Westminster School, which is one of the oldest prep schools in all of England. And it has a long legacy of abuse.
Right.
Thing. I don't know what I can say because since this is on YouTube, I guess. But all that
it's unlisted. So
okay.
Yeah, we're not. This isn't public. Only Grotto heads in here.
Facts. Okay. Yeah. Lots of what you'd expect at that type of school, child abuse,
totally,
stuff like that.
There.
Yeah, racism scandals in more recent years, and a price fixing scandal, where all the elite prep schools in England were collaborating on fixing their prices essentially. But anyway, that's beside the point. So they both went there, and they both went to Brown, and
Brown.
And so his brother David Lomnitz is the CEO of this water company that is definitely some kind of laundering front. I'm pretty sure it's called Iceland Spring Water. Okay. And if you look that up, there's so many fucking companies that show up because it's such a like generic ass name, I guess.
Right.
But
I do see one that is Iceland, all caps, spring water, but then there's also Iceland pure spring water. Yeah, you're right. It's just like the most inscrutable SEO thing ever.
Yeah, if you look it up with David Lomnitz, you'll probably find the right one.
Is it let me see, LOM?
What is it about like Iceland spring water? This is giving like Rappaport vibes. It's
Iceland
like
spring. Yeah, it's giving
it's
giving
like the
Bruce
United
Rappaport vibes.
like group. Like United Finance
Inter-Maritime
Associates
International Management.
Exactly. Yeah, Inter-Ocean like trading
corp. The first thing I thought, wow, there's a beverage industry article from 2005 called "Straight from the Source." That interviews David Lomnitz, director of Iceland Spring. It was launched in 2001 in Palm Beach, Florida. Okay.
Yeah. So, you okay? So yeah, let's get into that a little bit, right? If you let me,
Palm Beach.
yeah.
Okay.
This is cool. You don't mind if I keep cooking?
No, you can cook.
No.
I got some shit to get off my chest. You feel me?
Right,
yeah, this is like coast to coast
closet.
style. So by all
exactly.
means,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shout out the South. A lot of susness in Florida. Anyway, so David Lomnitz is the former owner of address 341 Garden Road, Palm Beach, which is 14 minutes from Epstein's like Palm Beach estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So David Lomnitz bought that house in 2005, and then he sold it in 2016, which I don't know. That's interesting years to be buying those. I think I'm pretty sure like Epstein's first run-ins with like Florida like law enforcement getting convicted down there was some time around then.
Around 2005, 2006, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the other aspect of this, which is the Lomnitz are a very Zionist family. And so this is a little bit of speculation, I don't have, not speculation. I just can't provide anything, but I have a firsthand source within the family, essentially, that that the Lomnitz family is extremely close to founders of like the Birthright program, essentially, and people that like got that popping, essentially. Which like I have no doubt that there'd be Epstein wouldn't be running in those circles as well, right?
God, if he was at Interlochen, it actually makes a lot of sense that he would like have some plug-in to like Birthright trips, because it's like a bunch of like horny college kids usually is like, from everything I've ever heard about Birthright, is like that's kind of the vibe of those trips, right? Like high school and college students. It's like his prime kind of targets.
Yeah, exactly. And like Epstein running in finance circles, and like the Lomnitz family is like, does finance shit, and is involved with all this. Like if you can find like business records for Robert Lomnitz, the main guy I first was talking about, but his shit looks like fucking, people are going like crazy about like, oh, Drake has, it's like 60 subsidiaries or however many it was. And it's like, bro, like compare that to your average, like fucking like Brit finance cap, like FinCap, or just like boring, pasty ass like white guy that has like 5,000 shell companies, like these kind of like Burt Cantor, Bruce Rappaport type figures. Shit called like Wonderworks 3D, and just like all types of just nonsense.
Right.
And so let's see, where is it going here? So anyway, so it's probably like, no doubt there's some connection with Epstein there, and my source like somewhat implied something like that in the past, in a kind of like tongue-in-cheek sort of way, just college kid like trying to not give up too much, I guess. About the rich family,
spilling a little tea. Sometimes that's where the realest tea gets spilled, is like college students with loose lips that feel a little weird about what like dad does for a living.
Exactly.
And, all that kind of shit. Like I've met people like that. It's definitely a type, but sometimes they'll talk. Sometimes it's not like this like super like lockdown thing where you know, you have like the bratty, like bad boy children that like try to rebel a little bit, and, like, you know, maybe they're trying to grab onto some humanity that they feel like otherwise would be sort of squelched out by not being repulsed by it. But no, that's interesting. I mean, anybody up in that Palm Beach world, you know, I mean, there's such a long roster of like shady bourgeois characters on Palm Beach Island, right? Like, I've never been to Miami, so I'm just speaking of like what I've read about it. But, you know, like, you know, Mar-a-Lago, what was it, Marjorie Merriweather Post estate, the serial heir, right?
Mm.
And I don't know anything about that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you look into like the old money in like Palm Beach, like that, I mean, it's just like it is like ground zero for like silk topper action, kind of in like probably the late 1800s, early 1900s, and like still to this day. I think later on you got more of like the Epstein crew. You got the Meyer Lansky people. You got like Alvin Malnick, and you know, that's where Brett Ratner came out of, and then all the cocaine in the 80s. Like, it's just always been like this little island like redoubt for like the super wealthy to plot and plan in their country clubs. And I mean, it's actually kind of it's interesting that like Trump ended up inheriting like this big, you know, club on it, because he's like the types of people that owned like Palm Beach were like old wasps, like that probably are the types of people that would find Trump vulgar, you know what I mean? But at the same time, he sort of embodies like better than anything like Florida new money, right? As does Epstein, right? Moved down from New York, right? Like snowbirds, and they moved down here and got a bunch of shady real estate deals, and they everything's got to be gold and fucking balling. And same with the rappers too; they're also like emblematic. You know, Diddy. I mean, another one that is around in this area that all that shit's coming out right now about his own kind of Epsteinish activities. And I mean, that's a whole rabbit, and you know, not even to mention Drake. But I don't know. I always got a bad vibe. I guess I should ask you, like, how sus is Miami? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10? Because from a distance, I have a feeling like it's pretty sus.
12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I actually, so like I said, I haven't spent a ton of time in Miami or South Florida at all, really. But I definitely, I actually had some Miami related things I wanted to talk about after this, if there was time. If you wanted to move on to the next person, that's fine. But
we have a little bit of time, I think.
If you want to drop that on us.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. So no, but going back to what you asked, Miami is a 12 on the sus. It's just off the radar. It's like it's like Miami's the most sus city possibly ever. Like
wow.
Does Miami verge on top? I don't know, but anyway, but going back to Robert Lomnitz for a second, the first guy I started talking about, another aspect of his legacy, really his first hustle as like an independent adult before the dot-com boom. And so this is another thing. So when I first learned all this was about 3 years ago. And so at that time, there was a web page up that was like a super old web page, like the type that's like fucking like just like HTML, like it's just fucking text. And I was I was dumb.
Counter.
Yeah, and I never saved the link, and I didn't back it up to like the Wayback Machine or anything, just because I was like not, you know, taking it that seriously or anything. But since then, you know, just in the last couple of months, I've tried to find this web page and I can't find it. I've tried everything to find it, and we found it with relative ease a couple years ago. So and like there's other people that have seen this. It's another thing I can't substantiate its existence, but Robert Lomnitz was he ran essentially like a tourist company after the fall of the Soviet Union.
Oh shit! I knew you were going to say some Russian shit. Shit. Just you wait for we've been recording. We've actually been recording a lot of episodes that aren't out yet, but Contra 8 is on the way, and we really do get into some like shady ass South Florida shit, right? Call it.
Yeah.
And especially like 90s, like weird, like Caribbean internet banks that started popping up that were run by like Russian cutout guys or like vaguely.
This guy reminds me a lot of all of that. Like I'm reading about like Limited Space Media Group. Like it's all just like a bunch of like it's the same type of like like endless,
Alexander
like interchangeable companies.
And all kind of run like in this like according to this playbook of like white collar crime that was pioneered by people like Meyer Lansky and Burt Cantor and Paul Hellawell and others. And like it's such a crazy thing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this Robert, what was his name, Lomnitz was kind of, it sounds like the type of guy that would be plugged into these networks, because there are also a lot of interesting things going on with like Jewish American charities, but also Zionist charities in Israel trying to get like Russian Jews or just Russians who could technically identify as like part Jewish or whatever to like either move to Israel or come to the United States. And there was the whole Refusnik thing in the 80s. But like under the guise of that, a lot of people came over that were like, came out of the prisons and were like crime lords and things, and then started setting up these like very ambitious, like both white collar criminal and also like brutal gangland operations, like on the East Coast, from New York all the way down, and I think up to Boston, all the way down to Miami. And then in the 90s, as you might expect, it absolutely exploded. But what is like less reported about that is like the complicity of certain U.S. banks in making all of it happen. And I think it's like it's an underexamined rabbit hole, but that was a bonanza in the 90s, and I think a lot of that money, that hot money from Russia, ended up going into Florida, among other places, right?
Yeah. So he actually was buying planes off the military, obviously, which was like super common, like during perestroika and just like after the fall,
arms dealing type shit. Yeah.
So but it seems like what planes he moved out of the country, who knows? But his tourism angle was kind of like military tourism. And so he was getting like rich like Brits and shit, probably like from the social circles his family ran in and shit, to come to the Soviet Union and essentially have like field days with like military equipment, seems like.
You know what? I remember hearing a story, Khalid and I know somebody who I think told us a story once about like how his parents went on a tour like that because they knew some like Ukrainian like ex-colonel businessman guy, and they like traveled a lot, and they went on one of these like military tours and got to like fly in like a MiG or something. And it's like that was the thing you just pay for, like in the 90s, like for fun. You go to Ukraine and like a guy would take you up in a MiG and like fly around, and like you ride around in a tank, and like talk about alchemic surrender, right? It's just like playing with like the Soviet toys. Like take me up, comrade. Like it's so sad. It's so sad.
Yeah. It gets even worse. So so that it's so funny you brought MiG, because I was literally like using that so much in like the various searches I was trying to do to find this page, because I literally remember it listed all the like MiG variants that like you could fly, like if you like contracted his service, and I just hate the thought of somebody that possibly has a couple of degrees of separation or interlocks with Epstein having access to, I don't know, like large passenger jets or large capacity like military like transport planes and things like that, whatever else he was buying.
That actually reminds me. I remember Crypto Cuttlefish dug this up years ago, and it always stuck with me. But if I recall correctly, that like somebody dug up that one of a plane that belonged to Epstein, like later ended up being owned by DynCorp and was being flown around like Yugoslavia in like the mid 90s, like during the Civil War. And I think it literally. There's a direct chain of transfer. Either I think it was from Epstein. He like sold his plane to like the State Department or something, and they like gave it to DynCorp. There was something really fucking weird about that, like in the 90s. So it's like, okay, you're just like, remember, didn't Epstein also have like an apartment that was like paid for by like the FBI or something, or no, by the State Department? He had like a State Department apartment in Florida. I don't know if maybe I'm getting that wrong, but there was definitely something about this like this small private jet that ended up in the possession of DynCorp, like running weird like black ops or like maybe trafficking on behalf of the U.S. government in like I forget if it was exactly in Bosnia or Croatia or, you know, somewhere around there, but it was like, it was photographed and like flagged. And it's like, oh, that's the same plane and the same tail number. And like, it used to be Epstein. So there's another like weird government connection. And I think actually his, I'd have to double check. I feel like he had like a female, like an Eastern European pilot, like a woman that would always travel around with him. And I think was indicted. It was like Martinkova, maybe. I forget if she was Russian or if she was Yugoslav, but I think he was very active running around there. And I think a lot of people were like doing that kind of thing. I mean, the fire sale, like looting of like the Red Army's like supplies and all the Eastern Bloc was like one of the most massive like transfers or like explosions of like weapons onto the market like in world history. And it directly fueled most of the wars of the 90s. In a very direct way, with people like maybe this guy providing that crucial middleman service.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, crazy shit.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, just if you wouldn't mind, you know, if I get into a little bit of Miami susness, it's some current shit that I feel like people are sleeping on about somebody that's in the media down there right now.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. So his name's Ignacio Iggy Alvarez, and he's currently running for sheriff of Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
There's literally so much about this guy. He's like a longtime Miami-Dade Police Department like vet essentially. He is like his time there is embroiled in so many scandals. He like got a law degree while he was just like an active fucking cop with them essentially, and he was a lawyer at the same time as being a police officer.
At the Algo law firm, I see.
Well, so yeah, that's I'm pretty sure that's the one he owns now. Yeah, so that's his
motto.
Fucking yeah. Sorry,
its motto is serving clients internationally.
Okay. Yeah.
International clients, huh?
And so his wife is Ashley Aragi, who's the Algo chief operating officer, and she started an angel investor company called Startup FIU that received a grant from the Miami Consulate General of Israel, hosted the Miami Israel Innovation Conference of 2022. And then her dad, James Aragi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but is head of business development at Algo, and I'm pretty sure it's Ashley's
Aragi.
Dad. So,
yeah,
Aragi. Yeah. So keeping shit in the family here, you know. And so that's his current one. But then dude, like the places they operate are so sus. And one of the people that Algo represented is MDPD narcotics officer Sergeant Matthew Fryer, who is accused of stealing money and evidence from crime scenes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and like the accused like sued MDPD for what happened, but he did work for law firm Diaz Ruiz, like for a lot of the time that he was at MDPD, and Diaz Ruiz was like in a pretty high profile case in Bolivia where they were protecting an airline owner. Who was like alleging that quote unquote communist Evo Morales was like trying to like entrap him in a bribery scheme or something.
Right.
And yeah, so there was like time, like I don't know if he worked on that case, but like there was overlap over like the time that he was doing work at Diaz Reus or whatever, and the time that they were like taking on that case. And what else was he getting into? Oh yeah, the Panama shit. He was doing like off the clock police training for the Panamanian police and like repression tactics.
That's very Israeli coded.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like IDF training Contras in Antigua. IDF training like everyone in West Africa. Like, yep, that's what they do. Colombia, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
So
so this is so actually, yeah, I might as well. So, and this guy's running for sheriff right now, and he's doing really well. As soon as he got in the sheriff race, he had like more money than all the other like 16 candidates, like immediately.
wow.
People have been fundraising for like the better part of a year. He outraised them in like a matter of weeks, right? So he's like the chosen boy, and this is the first sheriff's race for Miami-Dade in 60 years because they had to abolish the sheriff's position. Like literally the city
really?
council came to a ruling where they're like, we are going to abolish the sheriff position because it's so consistently corrupt.
Oh my God.
Because there was just so many like high profile like corruption scandals that it was essentially like they're like the county law enforcement was like under protectorship or some type of like relationship with other South Florida like law enforcement agencies. So this is a pretty like big sheriff's race, like first one in 60 years.
And this guy's like just coming out of the gate. I'm looking at the bios of everyone at the Algo law firm, and of course we're just speculating. We know all these lawyers to get the wrong idea. We're just totally just talking and speculating, not asserting anything of fact. We're just noticing certain things in their bio, like their extensive presence throughout South America, and one of the partners, 15 years of experience in wealth structuring, mitigation, and corporate and international business law, working heavily with offshore multi-jurisdictional transactions, cross-border tax advisory and immigration, counseling foreign and domestic companies, coordinating tax systems and treaties in various jurisdictions, representing transnational companies, high net worth individuals, foreign corporations, and family offices from numerous countries around the world like Chile, China, Spain, and the United States. Does this sound familiar? I mean... I could see maybe where some sources of money could come from for a sheriff's campaign, with excellent contacts like that. It just sounds like they have a lot of friends, abroad.
Well, can I hit you with the grand reveal, so to speak? Now,
okay.
Yeah.
So Iggy attended the Belen Jesuit Prep School in Havana or in Miami, right? So he's the younger brother of Jorge Alvarez, who's a permanent deacon of the Archdiocese of Miami. And so he's older. So he actually started at Belen Jesuit Prep School when they were only in Havana. And
so they're they're a anti-Castro Cuban family.
I
figured.
And pretty much that's like they're like an Operation Peter Pan school, right? And they don't hide that. Like they're very open that like their Miami campus, like their Miami school only exists because of like Operation Peter Pan, like bringing over kids from Cuba and shit.
I remember that Operation Peter Pan. God, what episode do we talk about Operation Peter Pan? There was something very sus that intersected.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It was the Che episode.
It was a weird one.
Yeah, it was
maybe it was the Che one. Yeah,
I feel like it came up somewhere in a very different context. I almost want to say it was
the Goblin one or something. Yeah, but I don't know.
Right. Yeah, who knows? But no, that's fascinating. I mean, I guess those underground networks and systems in Miami are alive and well. I mean, they're going to get a good anti-Castro Cuban Zionist lawyer with international connections.
And so their other brother was Eduardo Ojeda Camarasa, who was in Brigade 2506, and he was actually the go-ahead man for the Bay of Pigs. He was the most incompetent go-ahead man ever, and they captured him immediately.
Oh my
god!
And
he essentially got he was about to get sold down the river by his handler too. Wait.
Do we know who his handler was? Sturgis or Hunt?
Carl Jenkins.
Okay. Yeah. He was in JM Wave Station, right? I think that name does sound familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. He was he ran a whole bunch of ops, but yeah, he was the fucking, he was the on the ground man essentially for the Bay of Pigs. And he was literally given permission to kill Camarasa, because they literally thought that he might be a Cuban double agent for what a bad job he was doing.
Wow.
They're he might be a Castro provocateur who's trying to blow up the whole operation by
oh my god,
getting bad intel. But anyway, I just wanted to shine a light on that because he's this guy's running for sheriff, and all the media pieces on him that try to even remotely paint him in a bad light, just bring up the surface level shit, and not that he is also from this legacy
Yeah, I looked on the first page of his like Google results, and it's all like the only thing I could find that was like maybe like bad was like he like forgot to file a form on time, and like I guess so maybe something about let's see,
that shit's
candidates.
a psyop. That shit's a
Yeah.
psyop too, because if you really go back and read like all the shit on it, it's pretty clear that the Miami-Dade Police Department knew that he was doing these Panamanian police trainings and was like collaborating with him on them to a certain degree. And then this article is just like, oh no, like actually, like they knew so little about it, they had to discipline him about it. And,
You're right.
it's
I'm reading this right now.
okay.
That's exactly what it sounds like. It's like in 2009, Republican candidate for Miami-Dade County Sheriff Ignacio Iggy Alvarez picked up a side gig with the Panamanian National Police. That year, the future candidate traveled twice to Panama to help train officers there. There was just one problem. Alvarez, then a major with the county police department, did not tell his superiors about his side job, a violation of department policies, according to a written reprimand of Alvarez obtained by WLRN. The work itself was not the issue. It was not telling his employer as required. So it's like, okay, and it's like a paperwork thing, but it's like they kind of say it like the work itself wasn't the issue, but it's a pretty weak attack and kind of blows over the whole like why are you in Panama like training like the police down there, and that's a little bit I don't know, like a lot of corruption in Panama historically. It's like a shell company haven, etc. So yeah, let's see. It mentions a couple other like reprimandable or preventable incident with the county vehicle, like just like little shit, like they never really go they never go into the deep mafia shit with these figures,
Yeah. Wait, sorry. I just have so much on this guy. So like,
okay. If you can give us a quick thing, we want to get to.
We want to get to code.
We got to look
the unpleasant part of the Art Bell thing.
Yeah, sorry.
I know.
There's this website that's like a police forum and police post on there. I guess I'll just drop the lead on this one pretty much. If you go on this old police forum, what is it called? God damn it. I don't know. But a bunch of police posts on there, and this guy Iggy Alvarez is involved in much darker shit too. He was involved in a home robbery murder cover-up that was done by some police detectives, and he was also involved in systematically harassing a family who was trying to expose like corruption between the Miami-Dade city council and the Miami-Dade Police Department, involving like robberies, murder, money laundering, all this stuff. But yeah, all that's on the forum. But I love Subliminal Jihad. This is awesome. Always love to expose some Florida susness. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much. That was fascinating.
Good,
All right.
Yeah.
Take it easy. All right. So I guess we'll move on down here to
let's see if we can get Code back in. Is Code back in the chat?
Oh, Code is back in the chat. I'll admit
try to get
Code. We'll
Code
admit Code, and then Travis.
Oh, but before we
next.
move to Code, let me address a couple things in the chat. Jordan, I think it was Jordan who had the questions. We'll try, if you have time, to get to the chat questions.
Oh, written questions.
Yeah.
This is more of a talking questions one, if we can. But
but we'll make if it works out, we'll try. And also, this guy claiming to be Jimmy in the chat. I don't know about that, guys. Like, come on,
exercise
don't
caution.
take it at face value. Yeah,
don't believe it unless you hear Jimmy's voice. Call in. I'm not. We're not confirming it.
Word.
Anyway,
okay, I think that's everything. Oh yeah, Ladrone, bye. Good to see you.
Ladrone, thank you for calling.
I hopefully you hear this. All right. Hello, Code.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me? Is everything going all right now?
Yes, Code. How are you?
Great. Sorry about that before. I've never used Zoom, so I was coming in and a bunch of things were popping up and I was just clicking through it, and I guess I accidentally went through. But thanks for having me on. It's really, I don't know, it's quite surreal to be on here. I've been listening to you guys for a while, so it's quite cool.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. What's on your mind, Code?
Well, before I had a whole bunch of things, but now that I'm actually here, as I said, it gets quite, overwhelming. But I don't know, I guess I will say I recently went on the merch store for the Subliminal Jihad website, and I got one of the fanny packs there and one of the hats, because I'm planning on going to a music festival that's around here, and it is a very sus music festival. So I'm preparing to stay vigilant while I'm there.
Very
but it's
excited.
interesting.
Your
it's
order is
interesting
on the way,
because-
by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But my family actually has connections to kind of the origins of the music festival. It's a very local thing, and it started 25 years ago. And I had a family member who was kind of one of the founding people, and he actually kind of got sort of shoved to the side as it became more corporate and potentially more sus in some of those ways. I'm from British Columbia, and there's a whole bunch of, I mean, it's the Pacific Northwest is a really kind of, there's a whole bunch of shit going on here. And British Columbia in specific, if you look into the history of it, there's so many different things, from it being like the center of the residential school system to like the one of like the Nazi parties that came out here. It's also the headquarters for the Canada chapter of the Order of Nine Angles. So anyway, apologies. I've just kind of been going off
for
on
all of
a bunch
Canada.
things,
Nice.
but-
Okay.
Yeah,
And a
yeah,
large,
yeah.
like, usually a large heroin trafficking like way station into the into North America from Asia, right? I think also.
Yeah, I mean, Vancouver is a huge site for just a whole bunch of different stuff. But anyways,
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. I should maybe have a question or something so I could let you guys talk instead of just rambling to the grotto.
No, we're here to listen, but
Yeah, you
no,
can
but this
say,
shout out Canada, shout out all our Canadian listeners. We might
Yeah.
actually be planning something in Canada soon, or I might
Oh,
be.
shit.
We're there's some grotto heads that might put something together, more in the eastern part of the country, but
Right, yeah.
but
That
you
is
know,
where most people are.
right. But I was up close there. I was in Olympia, not maybe like 2 months ago, which I never really like hung out in Seattle or Portland or anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. But you know, it is interesting up there. You know, there's a big like Buddhist like QAnon cult outside of Olympia, and of course Evergreen State College, where the king bad boy himself went. Matt Groening or Groening, or I don't know how we're supposed to pronounce it.
I think it's graining. Yeah, people were telling
I
us
feel
it was
like
graining.
under like Goethe rules, it's like Groening or like Goebbels. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how his Midwestern ass pronounces it.
I don't know.
Anyways, but no, like that campus is
Goethe?
so interesting. Like the way it's like walled off and like this concrete, like brutalist, like kind of, I don't know, kind of vibe. And like Aberdeen, where like Kurt Cobain is from, is like very strange, like rundown little town. I kept seeing Croatian churches here and there, you know, sus Kristen Vosilic, and all that. But no, everyone up there is like kind of like noided about the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
And I guess that would include British Columbia as well, right?
Yeah. It is. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna ask you. I don't know if you want to like not dox like the name of the festival, but I'm just curious, like what genre are we talking about here?
No, I mean, I can go ahead and I can say it. It's funny that you mentioned the sort of Buddhist thing, because the festival is called Shambhala, which is named after kind of a Buddhist Hindu concept, right? So already sus, right, in kind of the origins, and it's
is it electronic dance? Is it a little bit maybe a little psy trancey?
I think there's like one of the things there, and so as I said, one of my family members who is shoved off as it got more corporate and probably more sus. I was talking to him about it, and he was kind of saying, like, there's ends up being a lot of Israelis at these kind of things, a lot of like the oil people and all that stuff. So,
oh my God, it's a Susco Psytrance festival now.
I know corporate. And it's crazy just from how much it's changed from kind of what he started when it started out with 25 years ago, with just like my mom was there and he was there, and now it's like a total huge, I describe it as Canada's Burning Man. And I know that for Burning Man you get a whole bunch of like those Silicon Valley kind of people. Here, we're a bit more removed from Silicon Valley, but Alberta and sort of the oil industry there, it's a really weird kind of phenomenon, because they do almost have their own kind of culture and their own like sort of like Silicon Valley does, where it's its own kind of like weird ecosystem. And I'm not from Alberta, so I don't know enough about that, but I'm sure that somebody could do a deep dive on like all the weird connections that all those oil CEOs and like it's definitely a really weird vibe. So I'm knowing what I'm getting into, but I still, there's some cool people there, and I think, if you're staying vigilant, you can navigate those things. But
I think you can.
It's an entry. One of the things is because it's such like a local thing, and it started off so small, and now it's huge. I grew up with, in high school hearing about people sneaking in and all that stuff. So it's interesting to actually go and see it, at least once. And maybe if I enjoy the music festival scene, I might go into some stuff where the music is actually not trash and all that stuff. Because I don't think the music is, well, there's a couple artists that I do like there, but I think a lot of them are, as I said, it's pretty typical like EDM stuff and all those things. But I'm mostly there for a vibe. I'm going with a friend and all that stuff. So it should be good. But I wanted to mention that because of all, the sus vibes and just I don't know, I guess kind of the evolution of how, it was sus from the origins, but it was sus in a different kind of way, where it's just, kind of like a bunch of hippies kind of like getting together and having their little thing, where now it has become such like a corporate money making scheme, and you get a whole other kind of different vibe of like weird people going in there. So
like ayahuasca finance bros and QAnon wellness cults and it is true. It's like the first people that did the first Burning Man on Baker Beach, just over the cliff from the Presidio when Michael Aquino was there. Coincidentally, I don't think I don't even know if they could have like envisioned the true like sus phenomenon that like Burning Man would become like 30, 40 years later. Back in the 80s, like that was kind of like a weird art, like kind of witchy, party where they burn an effigy and probably all on drugs. And then, over time, I still remember like when I was a teenager, like my first job at Subway, I worked with this like older guy who like was a burner, but that was like the first time I'd like kind of like heard of it. This is like mid 2000s. And like, it was described back then as like, oh my God, it's like this amazing kind of anarchist thing where like nobody brings money and you just like bring a bunch of shit in like RVs and then you barter it with each other and there's just sand everywhere and people build these installations and all that kind of stuff, And so it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is where like weird tech people go to blah, blah, blah. However, in retrospect, now that I've like learned more about Burning Man, there were totally always those people, like definitely from like the 90s onward. Remember the whole like secret chief thing called from Sus Psychedelics about how Leo Zeff and like Shulgin would be going up to Burning Man, and like Shulgin sort of used it as like a venue to like try out new research chemicals and like spread them around in between being like a fucking DEA consultant and like Bohemian Grove guy. It's like there were people always testing like weird little gadgets and like new military tech, like I feel like there were probably a lot of like experimental drone things that were like tried out there just because it's like you're pretty much like signing a waiver. I mean, you probably literally do by being there. So it is a big experimental like autonomous zone for a week and all kinds of things can happen. So it's like you're right though. Like the susness kind of like evolves sometimes and then becomes something different. I don't even think like Goa Trance is, I don't think you could say it's like the same type of susness from whatever little beach parties they had in the late 80s to like what sus IDF like Goa Trance is now, that has kind of like taken over the world. And, it even, like I've said before, there's something ineffable about it, but you can kind of feel the vibe. Like turning into this dark, I don't know, like the neon paint and just like those like phasing, like attacking things and just the whole infected mushroom vibe. It's just, it's like colonizer techno or something. Like it has that like dark, but also this like really fake, like Esalen, like pseudo enlightenment thing going on that feels almost like borderline dangerous because like, I don't know. Like, you shouldn't feel enlightened listening to like that music. You know what I mean? Like,
I actually wanted to speak on that a little bit because he kind of got into it a bit before, talking about the art installations and the oh wow, you're going in there and you're bartering and I feel like some of that is actually some of the most dangerous of aspects of the music festival, because it's that false consciousness that it gives you of being like, oh yeah, this is like the new lifestyle and this is something radical. Going here and taking a bunch of MDMA and connecting with a whole bunch of people who haven't taken a bath in a couple weeks. This is like the goal of what the new society needs to be, right? And then all the art, and some of that can be genuinely cool, right? Going at the art installations and being like, yeah, this stuff is neat. But it's how all these things kind of combine, and it gives you this feeling of like,
alternativity, like, oh, we could just switch to this, and
which would be not sustainable in any way and be a complete disaster. I mean, it's a disaster going there for a couple days, right? You need to take everything in moderation and be careful. So that's, I mean, part of why, and maybe this is a bit hubris of me and being too bold, right? But kind of going in there and being like, this can be fun and looking at stuff, but being careful not to get totally in that brainwashed mind control vibe of like, wow, we're in Shambhala, the new kingdom, right? That is the name of what the music festival is, right? This new era of this Hindu Buddhist bullshit.
Just a hodgepodge.
I have a colleague. I had a colleague who was involved in running a Buddhist meditation center in upstate New York, and I think I might have mentioned this on the show, but she told me that she had there was one guy who was always going there and would always be trying to get them to have ayahuasca retreats, and because it's interesting, people I feel don't realize, or maybe I think in the way that Buddhism is perceived in the United States due to the association with the 60s and all this stuff, and Gary Snyder's Zen thing and all that, people don't realize that Buddhism is a lot of other religions, and that generally it doesn't encourage you to take a bunch of psychedelics or whatever, but there are these people who are really trying to say oh yeah, have psychedelic events and ayahuasca retreats there, and they're they're
trying to merge them into, they're trying to shoehorn the ayahuasca into the Buddhist retreat thing. I think
they just do meditation type events now. And they're Tibetan Buddhists, a lot of Buddhist centers in United States are, and they're kind of but they have some Rinpoche, I think is how they say it, but he's
Rinpoche,
we're not going to do it. I think it's Rinpoche,
or
but I'm not I'm not actually 100% sure, but Canada's very sus. Shout out.
I have one more BC question for you, actually. If you could help us out with this, because this is somebody that's always been on my radar, and one day I kind of meant to kind of get back to, but I'm actually surprised with all the Epstein stuff and the Trump and Clinton and things that his name very rarely gets invoked in American politics. But are you aware of a man named Frank Giustra?
I'm afraid I don't think I'm super aware. I'd like to go off on a huge tangent, but I'm afraid I don't know anything.
I was hoping he's just the most notorious evil person in British Columbia, oh, that motherfucker. But he is a billionaire who I think is based in Vancouver, but has a lot of business holdings in Alberta. But he's a mining and oil and minerals guy. But he got very. Sorry, go ahead.
To ask, is he at all related to tech? Because that's one of the big things here, that tech is, I might know of his reputation, but I might not know his name specifically. But I mean, you're hitting a lot of things right there of, the mining industry here, and especially in Alberta. And I mean, land is one thing here in all of Canada, but BC, of course, with the housing industry. I mean, it is terrible. I can talk about some specific kind of stuff in our area, but it is just a few different guys who own all the land, and they keep raising rent, and all the small businesses are shutting down, and the big businesses, all the big pizza chains keep coming in. We've lost a small coffee shop and we're getting a Little Caesars next. So it's all this bullshit of I'm kind of going off on different thing, but no,
That's sad to hear,
housing
though, because that's the vibe south of the border too. I can confirm is that the rent keeps going up, small businesses closing. Just as an aside, like one of the people I was hanging out with in Olympia told me like a slightly heartwarming story because I did appreciate like how much of like a local scene kind of identity people had there of like you're in Ole. Like you're not, you know what I mean? Like you're in a place, like you're not just in like a city and like, oh, you're from California. They were like a little bit, and what do they call it? The Seattle freeze is kind of that. I mean, people complain about it, but they're just like people in Seattle like aren't friendly and they just like aren't very like open to like meeting kind of outsiders, or they don't like show emotion at like shows, and they're just like a little bit frosty. But I was told this story about how there are a lot of like independent coffee shops, obviously, in Olympia that everyone loves. It's a very high level coffee. But I think there was like one Starbucks that opened downtown, and then it had to close down for a while during COVID. And then I think at some point in the summer of 2020, like maybe during the riots or a little bit after, like some people just went and deliberately just like burned it completely down. And then they were telling me this, like, and then you know what? Then like a local chain came and like moved back in. And it was kind of like a cool, like, oh yeah, actually that's kind of badass. Like I kind of appreciate that. I appreciate there's a community of people that are like, if they get the chance, if they think they can like get away with it, like let's burn down that fucking Starbucks. Like fuck Starbucks, you know what I mean? And then Starbucks was just like, not worth it. And then they like left. So it's still local coffee there. But of course, it's like, you have to resort to pretty extreme measures these days to like stop these forces from just like moving in inexorably. It's like I've seen so many places in my part of LA that were like, just like small business, like well-known places that are now like Spitfire Pizza or like Shake Shack or like, just like some chain, some like upmarket chain, just like gobbling up like all like once you see the Mendocino Farms come in your neighborhood, it's fucked. Like, the rent's gonna skyrocket. And it's just that dynamic everywhere. And it's like it's amazing, although like totally not surprising that like it's like there should be a law against this shit. Like why do like the guys who own the land get to just like raise it on everybody? Like
Well,
but
I can say for here, one of the reasons is because they're the same guys who are on the city council. That's one thing that's so fucked with small town politics.
Yeah.
Hardly, like, not many people are involved, and then it ends up just being like the same like
insiders,
5 to 10 business owners and stuff like that who just do all these things. I want to let somebody else come in, but there is another topic that I wanted to briefly touch on because it's something that was kind of a personal experience for me, and I want to know, like, is this just a well-known thing that I didn't know about? So you guys know those kind of like Miss whatever city you're in pageants or whatever, right? Is that just a Canada thing, or you got
no, that's definitely a US thing.
Usually
Definitely
like states. I'd say states are more common, like Miss California. Yeah,
right. We have one for our individual cities here where I won't dox my
I feel like they have them at every level, and then there's like
there's also like debutante
Miss
shit.
America.
There's like Veiled Prophet Ball,
like
St.
Trump
Louis,
was
like weird
involved in
shit.
that. Trump was really involved in that type of stuff, like Miss Universe and all that stuff, like Miss World. Like there's all sorts of things like that. Yeah, and I think they do at the city level too. Yeah.
So is it a well-known thing that like the Freemasons are deeply involved with that? Because because like I just had an experience where I had the same family member who kind of helped with the founding of Shambhala. So again, he's pretty anointed. He was talking to me about how the Miss whatevers are picked by the people in the Freemason councils or whatever, and I was kind of like, oh, whatever, sure, man. And then I had a personal experience which kind of validated that, where I had I was talking to a girl who was a pretty shitty person. She was very racist and a lot of stuff, so I wasn't talking to her for very long. But she told me how she had like a family member who was, a Freemason. And then a couple years later, guess who was, the person selected for our city. So that was just something for me that I was quite like, just one of those small personal things where it's like, okay, even if we don't necessarily hear a lot about Masons besides in certain circles, right? I feel like some people think that the Masons have taken more of a back seat. I mean, they're still doing whatever weird shit, selecting teenage girls for pageants and shit like that.
Right.
So that was weird to me.
Yeah,
I'm actually
that's
looking
very much
through...
like what Dimitri was mentioning in terms of the veiled prophet ball. And in fact, like, it's interesting that the person you mentioned was like really racist, because that famously like has a KKK connection.
Exactly.
You know, so like I feel like a lot of these, and this KKK kind of like, they took a lot of their ranks and things like that from other secret societies. You know, they kind of modeled themselves on that pattern, of which the most famous example is the Freemasons. So yeah, definitely, like those types of groups often are running these things in the United States as well. Yeah, whether it's like a really like, you know, baleful group like the KKK, or something like more innocuous, or something kind of in between. You know, there's also that's always going on.
It is hard to get a it's hard to get a true handle on like the actual extent of like Freemasons as a group. But I feel like there
basically
still is
anything that's like, you know, a town tradition.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be some sus society of like, you know, well-connected people in the town who are like deciding anything having to do with that, like parade or like contest or like traditional thing. Like, just think about like how much susness must go around like the groundhog in the Groundhog Day town.
Oh, I know.
You know, probably so much.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I almost read that was based on some kind of like sus Freemasonic thing originally. I had to confirm that.
How
but
could it not be? I mean,
yeah.
How else did you get that idea of like?
Yeah.
Figure it out with the groundhog.
Well, you know, actually, I've been thinking about this question again about Freemasons, especially in the last week with everything that's happened. I'm thinking back to like the second episode we ever did about, you know, Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
And her aide, which he was a part of like the Freemasonic police department, got arrested for impersonating a cop, and then was connected to this sort of Grand Master guy that seemed to be friends with Ice-T, and like was kind of a big, like, I think we found pictures of him with like Karen Bass, who's now the mayor of Los Angeles, back when she was, I think, either an assemblywoman or I think she was an assemblywoman and then a congresswoman. But it wasn't like David X. Henry, right? And then he died while he was like on trial for like right around the time he was like being actually, you know, put on trial for impersonating a cop. He just like dropped dead, and then like right after that, like Kamala like got elected to the Senate and like moved on from being AG, and we were just, it was because they had just announced that Kamala was going to be the VP when we recorded episode 2 back in August 2020, and I remember being kind of surprised about that. Like I thought, like no way, like Kamala did so bad, like they're not going to, you know, I thought they did.
She had such a bad reputation.
Oh yeah, and I don't think it's like improved. But now you see this new like, remember the K Hive, right? In 2019, that army of bots, and like I'm still not sure how many of them were like paid or real people or just MK'd by Twitter or like not even just AI. I don't know, but like they were vicious. Like I'm like, you know, a lot of the candidates had like their little kind of attack armies on Twitter, but like hers was, it was the kind of one with like the like some name like Gran for Democracy, like 5 like blue wave emojis and like a bunch of like arms like flexing with like 4 vaccine shots, and like, you know, that would be later, but you know what I'm talking about. Like there was that type of account, like the blue wave account, that seemed like some kind of like bot network or like people getting paid to just like spam like Democratic content. I don't see them as much anymore. I don't know if it's because the algorithm is like changed under Elon and it's all fucked up now. But I feel up until like the 2022 elections, there were all these people just had like very just like standard like MSNBC, like that's why we need to get behind Joe. It read like fundraising like email kind of speak that these people had. You guys know what I'm talking about? Y'all know what I'm talking about?
I definitely remember some of that. I feel like some of them, you know, had to be real just because they were so delusional and strange in such a specific way that I was like, if you were going to program a bot, you wouldn't make this bot this crazy.
They would be more logical. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I think it's a scary thing about Twitter.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Especially like the first thing I think of when you thinking of like modern things is, you know, I follow a few different news stuff on YouTube, whether it's like
the Turkish news agency or Al Jazeera or what's one of the, some of the liberal ones in the Americas, right? Now This News is the one I was thinking of. And if you look at the comments, if you look at the comments of Now This, those are bizarre. They are like the most like liberal kind of like in crazy people, kind of like in the way that you're talking about. And that's another thing where I feel like they have to be real, but it isn't just such a specific way where I'm like, it's a little bit discouraging because I'm like, wow, you are so convinced that like, yeah, we are beating Trump and this is the biggest like win of the century. And like, it's just still so much orange man bad that I'm like, wow, this is like, I don't get it. It's strange
bizarre.
To me. Yeah,
maybe it's just boomers be posting, and like, because whenever I go on Facebook, I feel like that's how everybody communicates, and then like if they wander over to Twitter, then they bring that style with them. But it is more disturbing, I think, like hands down, that it's like real people than like a bot army. It's like more disturbing about like what the internet does to people, basically. Like if it's able to produce that on a mass scale of like, or my original point was the K-Hive, or now as they're known, like getting coconut pilled, is like, it was amazing how quickly when the debate happened and the dam kind of broke and people realized that they might have to like give Kamala actually like a serious look and she might be the only way out, that like within like I feel like hours, this irony things like just caught fire and was like, oh my God, like coconut pill, she's a Xanax wine mom. Actually, this is so epic. Like we should actually like Kamala's based. Like I love the way she talks and doesn't make sense and like laughs and like is, strange and et cetera, et cetera. And it really like it roared to life. It's like, and again, it's more disturbing if like,
I really
want to
know where that
started
and like, are they?
I don't know where
related in some way to Kamala. Like, I want to find like, because we know Patient Zero for the Pritzker thing.
Oh yeah,
we do. Who Patient Zero for the Kamala thing is? Like where did that get going? Like the whole like the meme element of it, of like unburdened by what has been, LOL, like LOL, conduct in which you live, and all that came before you. Like
they could have hired a meme agency the way like Bloomberg
they might
did.
have,
maybe. But that's still a fast turnaround time. Like there had to be somebody kind of like ready to go to like activate the K-Hive and like we're back. Like what I don't know what they were doing the last 3 years. They were just like kind of like like sad and like didn't know what to do with themselves, and then they got like the coconut bat signal like in the sky, and they're like, oh my God, time to post. And people, I think also people are just freaking out, and like I think that kind of ironic mimetic thing can just get like contagious when people are like,
oh yeah,
panicking.
I think that's yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how much that type of thing can catch on. Like I think you were just posting today, like
the big boy thing.
Like it's so incredibly crazy to like do that and just see like an ocean of big boy posts, like just in the exact same language. Like no, those aren't bots, those are just like people who like
I look it up and it's like professors at the University of Chicago and like Democratic Socialists in like Chicago and like all these other people that like I should know better, I would imagine, but apparently not.
Yeah, people just like I think see things and then they really do just get like infected by like it's crazy. Like it's how it works.
He's a big boy. Give me my big boy. I want my big boy. Like or they're they I think somebody said like the perfect like combination of like big boy discourse and irony poisoning, would be like Kamala, coconut pilled Kamala, and then like JB Big Boy as her VP, and then it would just be like the most irony poison ticket of all time. I'm not saying that, I'm not making my official prediction that might happen, but I am feeling like, I don't know, not to veer off on that topic, but it is we're recording this on 7/7, right? 7/7/24. And like I think I'm kind of mentally revisiting a lot of this stuff we covered in Contra 7 about Pritzker, not saying that he is going to be like the guy, but he's definitely going to be a shot caller. Like the convention, where's the convention this year? Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Sip and Lean by the Court says if we had internet in the 80s, it would be the same. I mean, Probably, but also like they didn't, and like that's why everything is like so fucked up now. But yeah,
it's just a new whole terrain of like psychological warfare. And there are definitely ways like, people are getting kind of programmed by the TV, before the internet. But I don't know. It's I don't know. I think when we started Contra 7 in the like early fall of like 2022, we were talking about how like it didn't look like Joe was going to make it, and like they're going to replace him. But then Joe like bounced back after that, right? And like they won the midterms, and then like the discourse about replacing him kind of disappeared for a while. I never fully forgot about it, but it was like, okay, we'll see. Like we'll see. I guess they pump him full of some drugs, and I guess he can give a good speech every now and then. But like they were definitely hiding him, and then, I don't know. Like then,
yeah. Well, I almost feel like I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out. I almost feel like there could be a fight with Joe and Kamala, but I don't know. Yeah, they might just stick with Joe Biden. I'm not sure. I feel like he kind of has to like think it's his own idea though. And he seems kind of dug in, but it could go either way.
Yeah. Code, what does this feel like to you as a Canadian watching all this?
I mean, well, honestly, I have to say that Canada's politics are not much better in another way. I mean, I guess the fucked up options we have are younger, so we at least have that. But yeah, I mean, the shitty thing about American politics is we can't just kind of like point and laugh at it, because what happens in the USA like has dramatic effects for the rest of the world, right? If Canada does some weird shit, it's kind of like, okay, well, sucks for Canadians, but America has way too much influence for the world. Honestly, my prediction, kind of what I feel, and I have absolutely no credentials to say this, but I almost feel like they're going to stick with Biden, almost just because it would be so stupid to do, and the Democratic Party tends to do really stupid shit. And I think like they just base so much on the idea that like most people are so out of touch, right? People are just kind of like so concerned about paying their rent that like they really don't think much about politics, and they are still just kind of like in the I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, so I vote Democrat or I vote a Republican. Obviously, there's a huge portion of people who are being more aware and all those things, but I think, the system really forces people in a way that it's a lot of times a privilege to be able to like focus a lot on politics and dedicate a lot of your time to that, because most of the people are just kind of like trying to live and trying to get by. And,
right.
Because the economy's fucked, so they just kind
it's
of
so
like have
fucked
their
right now.
that are formed.
Not good right now.
Yeah.
One crazy thing I remembered was that, like, in fact, I think this actually happened in British Columbia, like that a bunch of like Hindu like spies, or well, sorry, Indian spies. They were out like, it was based on like Hindu grievance politics, partially like assassinated a bunch of like Sikh
they
like,
did
activists. That was absolutely crazy. Yeah, and there's one like Jagmeet Singh, who's like a leader of like kind of a smaller sort of opposition party in Canada, who's a Sikh, right? Yeah, it's crazy. That hasn't happened in the US yet, I don't think. But yeah.
I could speak on that a little bit, because it is actually crazy to see the Sikh population has influence in Canadian politics. I mean, it's not just Jagmeet Singh. The NDP has a whole lot of Sikhs in it. And it's fun. My family is actually traditionally an NDP family, right? So I've become pretty disillusioned with the NDP now, because they're basically...
I'm hearing this is not a small opposition party in the chat. It's like a significant one.
It competes with the Bloc Québécois for third or fourth place.
Okay. Yeah.
The Liberals and Conservatives are our main two parties, and then Bloc Québécois and the NDP kind of compete for third and fourth, which is crazy because the Bloc Québécois is only in Quebec. So for just kind of like a party that is only in one province to have so much influence, and they're actually... I mean, I can't say they're good because they have a lot of really shitty policies, especially like some anti-Muslim stuff. But that being said, they are still like, they were the party to kind of bring in, as disappointing as this is, a recognition of a two-state solution and all this different stuff. which should be, like recognizing the West Bank as Palestinian, which was shot down by the liberals and the conservatives. So we're basically just kind of like Canada is full in on like all of Palestine is Israeli territory, right?
Right.
Which is really shitty, but it is interesting to kind of see, like the NDP has been a bit mixed on that and all those things. I think, they're some of the best that we have. They're kind of, I would describe them as if AOC and Bernie Sanders kind of like had their own party, and also some people slightly to the right of them. They're, like center left to sometimes left wing ish, but really the center left is the one driving everything.
Right.
And they have a terrible tendency to just kind of go to the right and play off of the liberals, right? Like our previous leader before Jagmeet Singh, I forget how to pronounce his name, like Tom McClare or whatever. But his whole thing was basically kind of like we had our previous prime minister was Stephen Harper, and he was the most right-wing prime minister that Canada has ever had. And his McClare's whole thing was like, stop Harper. He had these orange stop signs that just says stop Harper. It's very much kind of like an orange man bad, stop Trump, right? That was his whole campaign. Like, we're not going to do anything. It's all just about stop Harper. So obviously if people went, stop Harper, then they're going to vote for the Liberals. Why would they vote for the NDP?
Right.
It's a pretty stupid kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to speak a bit on Canadian politics, something similar here is happening to what's happening in the UK right now, where, because I'm not sure if you know about this, but we have the People's Party of Canada, which sounds like, oh, People's Party, they for the people. They're like super right wing, like Canada is based on Christian values, and they call them, they say Judeo-Christian values, because
of course, yeah.
Chestnut.
Yeah.
So they have this whole thing about, like, I mean, it's interesting because they have a lot of like noited people in it, but noited in the QAnon way, right?
Right.
Like a RFK Jr. kind of noited.
Yeah.
I feel like that's giving them too much credit. I feel they're more kind of, I mean, it's a lot of like, I know how I mean, this might be true in some ways, but maybe not the exact way they talk about it. Like the UN is this big cabal that's just
okay, like Alex Jones,
like
more Alex Jones vibe.
Yeah.
I see.
And
globalists.
The thing is that so they've just kind of split off from the Conservative Party, and they haven't gotten any seats yet, but they're kind of taking the place that Reform UK is in the UK, where they are siphoning votes off of the Conservatives. So then the Conservatives are really trying to move to the right to catch those voters, even though these people hate the Conservatives because they see the Conservatives as part of the establishment, and they're, super anti-establishment. Even if
they're going to get a little goblin blood on them when they're fighting the goblins and killing the goblins. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing with like Trump. Alex Jones was like so anti like every president, and like the Bushes, they're Satanists, and like he hated everybody. But then finally, like Trump came along, and he's like, like he decided to throw his lot in, and then like have this tactical alliance with the more traditional right.
One of the founders of the People's Party of Canada, I guess, was a white nationalist, it seems.
Okay.
A former American white nationalist. There you go.
Okay, all right.
That's an epitome of the interconnection of American and Canadian politics there.
Right. We got to watch out for these,
it's
crypto populist. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see. Like Canada is such a weird nation because, we're a settler colonial nation like America. We don't really have much of our own identity besides the fact that like we're not America and we stuck with the British Crown. So much of like Canadian identity is just based on being like, oh yeah, America sucks and we're not Americans and we're like so much cooler and more enlightened than them. And so then there's kind of been a bit of a bounce back towards that of people who are just like the hugest America simps, and they just kind of like go in. And I remember like being in for election season here in Canada, and people would have Trump signs outside their house, and I'm like, we can't vote for Trump. Like I mean, can you imagine that the other way around of like American
No.
liberals having like a Justin Trudeau sign outside their house?
I
Like,
could
that's-
actually see like maybe in a few
I've
neighborhoods
known
like
people from the UK who are like that. Who are like they're all like
Okay,
about
well, there-
Trump,
yeah.
and it's like
there
it's-
was a
yeah.
thing about like the left and Corbyn and stuff where like a lot of American leftists got like
That's
real
true,
like
yeah.
went over there to like knock on doors in Manchester to like, you know, help Corbyn. And Corbyn's like not on a different level than I think some of these people. But still like they're but it's still Americans are in general like politically narcissistic because we're this big empire, you know, country. So it would be mostly because like they don't pay attention to what happens in neighboring countries, like, you know, and they're just focused on that. But no, fascinating stuff about Canadian politics. I do feel like we should move on to the next next
sure.
caller.
Yeah,
I've
but
been
this is
taking
Great
great
hearing
code.
from you.
Yeah, great
shout
hearing
out
from you,
Canada.
Code.
I actually
Shout out
was in
Canada.
Calgary for a little
Oh.
while, not too long ago, which is
interesting.
in Alberta. Shout out to some of our Albertans in the chat. It was
Wow,
fun,
got
but it
all
was
the
also kind of
provinces.
sus. I was there during that big like Calgary. What do they call it?
The Calgary Stampede.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
that's what it is. Yeah. It was kind of a sus event.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I call Alberta sort of like the Texas of Canada.
That
because
seemed
they're-
like to be the vibe. Yeah, that
Yeah.
seemed to be the vibe. Like
they're quite
it was
interesting
like
there.
mhm,
Totally,
mhm.
totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Shout out to my friend Ian. We listen to the podcast together when we go on road trips. So
Hell
you know,
yeah.
maybe we'll play this episode. You know,
Mhm.
wish me luck for my adventure, staying vigilant at the music festival. We'll see how sus that shit is. And thank
Exactly,
you.
just-
You know, it's been really great talking with you. I love the podcast. You guys are amazing. So yeah, take care. Stay vigilant.
Yeah, thank you so much. Stay vigilant.
Yeah.
All
peace.
right. Peace out,
Good hearing
Code.
from you.
All right. We're gonna move try to move a little more swiftly. I know I've seen some of y'all have been waiting for a while. So we're gonna try to
Oh man, how many
move it.
people do we even have in the waiting room?
We
I
have
can't
15.
see it.
We have 15
15.
people.
All right.
Yeah,
Oof,
yeah.
That's
So we
rough.
got
okay.
Noah. We're gonna bring Noah on, and that should just take a second. But great callers so far. Really enjoying this. Everyone's got interesting stuff.
Oh yeah, Noah mentioned that they had to step away for a bit, so I don't know if they've come back.
Oh, okay,
Hopefully they
okay. Well, we can.
Noah, if you're there, you can unmute yourself.
We will. We are going to Jonas next, or Jonas. There's an SC. I don't know.
Oh wait, I think Noah did unmute themselves or himself. Yeah.
Hello.
I know. I assume you're he him. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh, I
hello.
think I'm here. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Can
Oh,
you hear
yes.
us?
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
So
we
that I
have-
can-
Hi, I'm
Walaikum salam.
sorry you caught me on my commute. So,
Oh, okay, okay. We actually have two
yeah,
people
yeah.
in the chat right now.
Oh, God. Right.
Is that Jonas?
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
me. That's me.
Dziękuję, I presume?
Yeah,
All
that's
right, all
Polish.
right, all right. We got a Polish listener in the chat. Love to see
Yeah,
it.
I'm representing for the Europeans and for the Zoomers.
All right, all right, all right. So you're moving right now.
Yeah,
and
that's correct.
okay. I think if you don't mind, our other guy on the line,
Yeah, let's
our
go
other
to
person on
Noah.
the-
Yeah. Mhm.
Are you? I guess which one of you is more busy right now? And we need to talk now versus.
I could stand waiting for another 20 to 30 minutes and I'll be home.
Oh, okay. So you could wait. You could wait a little more.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm gonna put you on mute for now, and then when you get back, we'll get to you, or when you're close to
Yeah.
home.
We
Okay.
can put him
Alright,
back in the
alright.
waiting room too if you want, or I mean, I guess you can go video off and I don't know.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Oh, I
I'll
see.
do-
Put in waiting room. Ah, there we
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
There we
We'll
go.
put it back.
We
Yeah,
got you,
yeah,
Jonas.
enjoy the waiting room. Okay. Sorry for that. Oh,
Sorry about
all
that.
right, Salam,
Noah, what's up?
Welcome, salam. Hello.
How's it going?
Sorry, yeah. When I first joined, I still had the what's it called? The thing unmuted or the YouTube link muted. So I was hearing everything
Oh,
like
yeah.
5 times, and I was starting to
Oh,
freak
I
out a
see.
little
Yeah.
bit.
It's
Mhm,
crazy.
mhm.
The delay is crazy.
Yeah.
I had to turn it on.
Let's see. Okay, I have like a couple things. So I'm from Texas. Everyone would bring up like sus locations. I don't necessarily have anything about Texas in particular, besides the fact that it's called when you fly into the airport and when you drive around the city. There's all these things that are like military city. We have a lot of bases here. And
Which
there's a lot of
airport?
really San Antonio International
Oh, okay,
Airport.
okay. Yeah, big military Air Force base out there, right?
Yeah, a bunch. And one of the only other known CIA locations, like
Really?
CIA bases.
Interesting.
Yes. I think I can't remember exactly what base it is, but a lot of the weapons for the Contra were trafficked through San Antonio into like into
Central America.
Yeah, Central America and stuff. And it's yeah, so that like blew my mind. Whitley Strieber is from here.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I've been to the park where he like contacted the aliens. I drive by his high school
nice.
that he went to every day. The high school
Wow.
that he went to, I drive by every day to when I'm going to work.
Wow,
And
that's yeah.
I meant to send the documents in the chat, but I think I forgot and said I was in contact with a colleague about it who is also just of he listens to the podcast. I don't know if he listens to it actually. I told him to start. He's my boss. I'm a professor at a university. And so like he's my boss and I'm like, dude, you got to listen to this podcast. Like you're gonna love it. I just know you will. And he's like, okay, no, I'll freaking listen to it. And then he started listening to it and actually really likes it.
Tell him to give me a call when he's on the chairing a search committee. Yeah, if he's ever chairing a search committee, tell him to hit me up.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll let him know. I'll let him know that if you're ever looking to move to Texas,
well, that's where it's a big part of the country. So I've definitely applied to some things there. You know, I'm not against it. So yeah, if he's on any search committees and he's a fan of the podcast, you know, yeah, definitely let me know because I don't know if everyone out there in academia is a fan of the podcast.
We're the
Zionist deans and
yeah.
And like Jacobin mega subscribers. Oh, no, fuck you. Like, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely, yeah, I have another professor. Like I just graduated from like my MA. And so I'm going to teach for a little bit and then maybe go and get a PhD and stuff. But yeah, like, yeah, it's definitely, it's a hellscape out there. That's sort of what my question is. I posted in the question chat a while ago, but I know that there's a large backlog there, so I'm glad that the question episode has gotten here where we can call in. But I guess maybe this is to both of y'all, but maybe Khaled, you might have a little bit more knowledge or like maybe know a little bit more. But so I'm a philosopher by like training, that's what I've studied. And a colleague at where I got my MA at we know quite a lot of, or he knows and has shared with me quite a lot of sus things about where the university that he works at, that I went to, got their money. In particular, we have the philosophy department in particular has like asked from or has gotten grants from like the Koch, this like weird Koch Foundation thing. And we have a lot of philosophers there who are analytic philosophers by trade. And they're mostly just reactionary Catholics.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
So, converts, perhaps.
I'm not sure. I never really got into too many theological or religious discussions with them. I mostly just tried to talk to them about continental philosophy, which is what I tend to do. And they were just like, "This is dumb. Like, why do you read any of this?" I'm like, "Okay, thanks, guys. See you later." And so I guess like my question is, and I remember there was a book that you had mentioned, Khaled, by Garreau, I think is his name. The one
maybe
it's something about like the military or like something about sus, or like universities.
Yes, spooked up universities. Yeah, I remember. I forget the author's name, but yeah, and I forget the title of the book, but I'm sure I just read it like when I mentioned it on the show. And yeah, it's a very interesting topic. In fact, I was just mentioning it in an episode recently. I'm not sure if it aired or not yet, but there's like the incredible like penetration of like the intelligence community of the military industrial complex like into universities. Really, like it would be like most fair to talk about like a military industrial like university complex, right? That system is like very much like embedded in all those things. It's very sus. But anyway, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I actually probably have the book written down somewhere, so I'll look up what it is. But yeah, sorry. Please continue.
But yeah, so I guess like a research project that me and some other my current boss and my thesis advisor and friend from my undergraduate or my MA school have been trying to or want to get off the ground like a sus analytic philosophy project, because obviously there's a lot of sus things with continental philosophy, whether it be like Heidegger being a Nazi, Foucault's whole thing, or like a lot of these guys. But I do think that like if one looked into the history of analytic philosophy, a lot of these, I get like the spook connection between a lot of them, and like the use of philosophy by and theory in general by like the CIA, I mean, you have the whole thing with like the IDF freaking reading Deleuze and being like,
Right,
wow,
right. Yeah, like West Point Gramsci studies. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I guess that's sort of my question. Like, what's your one is like, what's the take on theory and why it gets sort of used in these sus ways? And then two, I guess sort of like, I'm going to become a professor, like I'm going to start teaching and stuff. Like, how do you sort of push back against those types of uses of the things that are potentially liberatory, like in this type of stuff, or helpful in some sense? Like, how do you sort of push back against the misuse of them in these sus contexts and in these type of things? Like how do you? Because I feel like y'all's podcast does that really well. At least for me personally, like when I started listening, getting noited has made me like more radical, I guess, in some sense. Like it's sort of helped me in that, and so like that has been really cool. Like my girlfriend and I like have a thing where we like give books out to people so they can read and try and get noited as well. I suggest a podcast to all these people because I'm like, look, listen to this, and you're gonna realize like how sus all of the things that like deal with us are, and that's gonna like hopefully put you in the right direction to like actually start critiquing them in some meaningful way. But like I guess when you're teaching, so maybe this is why it's more directed towards Khaled. Like, how do you, in your teaching, like, do you ever not necessarily try to make your students noited, but try to like push them in the direction in which they can start to not like maybe become a Marxist or something? Like, I don't know. I guess that feels like a really broad, like strange question, but yeah.
I try to make my students noited. I think that first of all, I feel like a lot of the time my students are more noited than I am. Like sometimes, like I really feel like that's something that I experience a lot. But also, like I think that like in teaching, first of all, you have to be very careful too, like because there's like an expectation, like in the academy, that like you're not trying to like push your views on anybody, especially like if you're teaching like certain subjects, like for instance, like religion. Like that's like a big anxiety of mine, is like I don't want to come off as being like too Muslim, or like I'm too much of like a partisan, or like have a confessional bias towards Islam, or like, you know, I don't want to overcorrect and have people like come to me and be like, why are you Islamophobic? And I'm like, I'm Muslim, you know, like it's like why I've had people come to me like, why are you even assigning this? And I'm like, it's important for like people to understand that these things like are at like about like the most milquetoast, like kind of like Orientalists, you know, right? It's just like I'm like, this isn't a madrasa, you know, I can't teach like that. Like, you know, I'm not saying that this, if you want to go to a madrasa, by all means, like I think that's great, but that's not like the system that like I am even qualified to teach in. But anyways, maybe it's a bit of a digression. I think that it's something that's like very difficult to navigate. And I think that you have to do it like on a case by case basis and like evaluate like what you are like comfortable being party to and what like you are. And I think that it kind of goes to what we were talking about a little bit before, in that like, you know, sometimes you might find that like the unwillingness to do certain things or to like be down with certain things, or like, you know, the stances that you've made throughout your career, like do get in the way of you being in a position to even continue, like, you know, like that does people like do take stock, and it does matter, you know, like they're like if you're, for instance, if your name is like on a petition about Palestine, like that could matter. Like if you know, if you're not comfortable doing a certain thing, and it's like, as I was saying before, it's like a brutal landscape. Like bear that in mind. Like as you're saying like, I'm going to be a professor. Don't, like, my advice to you is don't repeat. I'm not trying to like, you know, I think that's valid to ask for. I'm just saying don't like, you know, internalize that too much, that you're going to be a professor. Be prepared. You know, if you end up doing that, like that's sick. Like I hope, I wish that for you, but like, you know, don't expect it too much. You know what I mean? Like, because I think that's also an important thing too, because academia is toxic, and in a way it's like designed to like make your self-worth like dependent upon the validation of this like twisted system where you're just like, please tell me I'm good, please tell me I'm good, I'll do anything, like I'll like, you know, I'll be sus as hell, like I'll help you design a drone, you know, like, and like that's the thing, like it like creates this like weird paternalistic thing, and you like, and I think that yeah, being able to like refuse that is like part of it. I think that there is a way, because like we're all like complicit in like a like genocidal machine in a way, like working in that sense, whether you're like a cog at some like big corporation, like, you know, you're working at like at a call center that the frauds people or like whatever. Like it's very, very hard. Like there's almost no, there's very little like ethical working under capitalism. Like if you drive an Uber, you're like scabbing taxi drivers, you know, like it's
exactly.
like a lot of people like
literally what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So, so in academia, I think there's, you know, I kind of, in some ways, like I do agree with like some of the things maybe you've like come like a stealing from the academy, you know, like kind of like the fugitivity and like that type of stuff. Maybe you've come across like in the kind of more like critical theory, like Fred Moten and things like that. I do think that having that kind of like relationship to the academy, like not over identifying with it, like is like, you know, it is important, and not like investing too much of your self-worth in it, and like understanding that like, yeah, I think what you said is true, like that, like being annoyed and understanding what this really is, you know, that this isn't like, and not buying into the kind of story that academia tells about itself, that it's this pure thing that is just about the life of the mind and about learning. Like, you know, you might think that like, yeah, like I think in most people's idea of like what a philosopher is someone who has nothing to do with any of these things in the world and can just like think. That's never ever been how it is, right? Like, because it's always been like implicated, like, you know, even before like there's this partition between analytic philosophy, like, you know, Plato was invited to go like advise like Syracusan tyrants, you know, like it's always been like that. So I, you know, the original academics, you know, right? So, I think that like that is like a big thing that I would say is like not over investing in it, and also just like for one's own like, you know, because it's rough out there, and I don't know if it's gonna get any better. They're really trying to grind people down and like make us all contingent as hell so that we have no leverage. And one of my big things is like we have to not accept that. You know, we have to be willing to like say no, because otherwise they're just gonna like offer us less and less and less and expect us to accept less and less and less, because like, you know, it's about like if I'm not a professor, then like I'm a failure, you know, and that's not true. Like no one can ever take away like the intellectual work that you've done, you know, and like that's something that I value about the show, is like the like making it clear that there's like intellectual work you can do outside of that framework too, you know, that's like maybe it like has different like, I don't know, yeah, like lines of flight or frameworks or whatever, but is still substantive and valuable. So I don't know, yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer, but I think that like, and I also think that like work that deals with the and that's something that I strive to do like in my academic work too, which is like kind of like it's a difficult needle to thread, because like, you know, you don't want to be perceived as like attacking people or being too mean to like certain scholars, you know, or like talking about like, oh, what's the relevance of like, you know, what other positions they held or their background or where they worked or whatever, especially if they're still living, you know. But like it's also, I think, important to like situate oneself and like understand like one's own kind of positionality within within the academy, and what like what the history and what like the like what the purpose of the academy is, what it does, you know. And like for a long time, I think this is one of the things that is still salient, right? Like in a way, as I said before, I think like kind of the stuff around like Orientalism, like there's a lot of like not great history. There's a lot of like you know, things that are overlooked in that book. There's a lot of like, you know, a lot of it is kind of passé now, I feel like, or like, you know, we've internalized it, and now it's time to think about it more deeply. And I think, as I've said before, like, well, Halak does a good job doing that. But I think, like, yeah, one of the big insights of that was like, what is like the purpose of like this discipline? This is about like, you know, dominating people through like the production of knowledge. And I think that's true. Like, and having a sense of like the history of this discipline that you're embedded in, and the history of like this, like an institution that you're embedded in. And then like when you write and when you're engaging with these other thinkers, like understanding like, you know, the broader picture of it, you know, and understanding that, I don't know, yeah, maybe I'm just going off, but like there's no truly like, you know, pure and detached view from nowhere knowledge, right? It's always, you know, determined by these things. But yeah, I hope that that's a decent response.
No, that's definitely super useful. I guess maybe one other question for both of y'all. And I think I had messaged a while ago about this to you, Khaled. Like, maybe just a definition. So I was writing a paper on ontops, and I use it in like a bunch of my classes when I was in undergraduate. I was trying to like push the term onto everyone. I was like, guys, like this is like a really useful way to understand like some of these things that we're reading. So maybe just for me, like, could y'all give your sort of formal definition of the ONTOP, just to get it out there again, and maybe like a brief genealogy of the ONTOP, like where did it come from, how did it come about, and maybe where do you see it going, or like how.
I was thinking the other day, like maybe that I would try to, in some way, like get like to put like papers out, like dealing with the concepts, like like Dracularity or ONTOP that we've used in the show, like that, because like Dracularity, for instance, did like kind of originate in a paper that I had written like my first year in graduate school, where I talked about the Dracularity of 9/11, and I was thinking maybe I should go back to some of that stuff and see if I can place that, but. Yeah, to your question, I mean, I think people like use the term ONTOP, like I feel like in different ways, and I think that that's true like with a lot of like theoretically productive concepts, like that they have like that their meaning is in some ways like open, and there's a little bit of openness in terms of the interpretation. So I think that's kind of good, and I never feel like I'm gonna like say to somebody like you're using ONTOP like wrongly, and I feel like like at this stage, I think it's good to like kind of provide resources to people for like understanding like what we're talking about, but I also feel like if people feel like the sort of formulation speaks to them in some ways, I don't mind people taking it into a different direction or reformulating it. But the way like I understand it, and the genealogy of ONTOP is different, whereas like the Dracularity of 9/11 I had thought about like more deeply, kind of in like a way like kind of like writing something that like really was like a spur of the moment thing where we were talking about psyops, and I'm like very interested in the domain of like ontology, right, and in like thinking about being in that like tradition of thought, like whether like under the term like ontology proper, or in particular like in Islamic intellectual history. So like and like for me, like the sort of ontological and epistemological questions like I've always been like core to like how I think about like anything, especially like on the show. So like what like Dimitri was talking about psyops, and then like for whatever reason, just in that moment, I was like, it's kind of like an ONTOP, and it really was like a spur of the moment thing. But the way that
I forgot that you like coined that in the moment.
Yeah, totally.
But I guess you did, yeah, because we were just like chatting about like Alex Jones or like Michael Aquino. I don't even know where it came up, but I remember being like, "Ooh, that's good," actually, because like, yeah, sorry, awesome. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
yeah, well, I mean, I basically feel like, and again, like ontology and epistemology are not like easily, and this kind of goes to the point we were just talking about, that like they're not easily like separable, right? Like there isn't like necessarily a clean break between ontology and epistemology. And I think in a way, like a psyop, it's called a psychological operation, but it could also be thought of like as an epistemological operation, right? Like where so it operates at the level of psychology, like, and epistemology operates at the level of like knowledge and what kind of things are known, and like how we know things, and like how to know things, right? So like with an ONTOP, I think of like it's a psyop that actually doesn't just change the way that things are perceived or change like or affect knowledge or how things are known, but it actually changes what things are. And that's like how I kind of see it. Like it's a psyop that like enters into the domain of ontology itself, right? It's so, I guess you could think of it as a more effective psyop. It's so effective that it actually changes like what things are and actually intervenes in like an ontological domain beyond just like a mere like sort of psychological domain or an epistemological one. So I think it's a much more like nebulous space in that way, where I think that a lot of the time, like once like the ONTOP, if the ONTOP is successful, like the people who implemented the ONTOP likely don't even know that they have
you'll never know their names.
The ONTOP, because and also like the ONTOP has been successful on themselves, like that they what has like with a psyop, it's like, hey, we tricked these people and like they did, like we were successful, whereas with an ONTOP, I think that like eventually the knowledge of the deception like completely, or that it was ever kind of any kind of break between any kind of difference between perception and reality, or any kind of difference between like what's like the knowledge of a thing and the thing itself, that kind of like fades away in the ONTOP. And then because and the like the ONTOP, like it's it's hard to even know like when it's happened, because the people who have done it, like now that's it's their reality, it's the reality for everybody else. And I think a great example of an ONTOP, I think, is like the idea of like the kind of messianic restoration of the Jewish people to Israel, and the idea that this is like a biblical prophecy that everyone has always believed in, You know,
Definitely
like
an on top.
that is like something that like people, it shapes their understanding not only of history, not only of people's beliefs, but also like on a big level, their understanding of like the entire shape of reality and the world as it interacts with those things. Yeah. What do you?
One way or another, it's destiny. Yeah. The only thing I'd add to that, my kind of like small, like crude kind of definition, or like the way I often deploy it or I think about it, is that like psychological operations are sort of the micro, ontological operations are the macro. And so obviously like to sort of carry out an on top, you need to psyop people, but it's like a whole series of psyops over a period of time and like a bunch of different factors kind of coming together to lay the groundwork to tell like a lie that can be embraced by like an entire society and then just becomes baked in, or something about how like, you know, even America, like, oh yeah, like this is just like our land. Like we just like, you know, like a lot of Americans don't think about it, right? You know, the settler colonial thing. Like I feel like the mentality of like most Americans is like the product of that on top of like, this is ours now. And I think you could say the same thing about Israel and Palestine. So I see it as like talking
Destiny
about
is another good one. Where it's
Manifest Destiny is a great on top. It wasn't just a one time they tricked people into like thinking Manifest Destiny was like a thing. Like, you know, it's like the way Michael Aquino called psyops lesser black magic. And in a way, you can kind of take it as like greater black magic is the on top.
Black magic, because that changes what Aquino would call the objective universe, right? Whereas like psychological operations would take place in the subjective universe. The idea of the on top is that it changes the objective universe. And Manifest Destiny is a very evocative name because it does like manifest, like, you know, this idea of destiny then eventually manifests itself, right? And then it's to the point where like people don't even like think about the fact that there were people living in the United States beforehand, you know, and like it's incredibly deeply like embedded. And like I think that's the thing, like when it's successful, like it becomes true, and you almost it's incredibly difficult to even unpack this and speak of this as being false anymore, because it's like worked its effect upon like the reality itself in a way. But again, you, in the same way that that ontological and epistemological domain are always entangled, there's always like a possibility of some kind of critique, I guess, or some kind of disentanglement that one could make. So yeah, that's maybe what I would say. Yeah.
Nice. That's really useful. That's sort of how like I thought about it in my classes. In the class we were reading like The Wretched of the Earth, and I was like, oh guys, like the way, like the sort of process that Fanon is like explaining is like an on top. Like it's the like what, and both of you brought up, you know, Manifest Destiny or the colonization of Palestine by Israel. Like colonization is an on top. Like it's it is, because it's sort of the way it dehumanizes and like makes the process of dehumanization itself is like an on top, because it changes what was once human to non-human anymore. That's how it's nice to hear, because that's sort of how I was.
I mean, like racism against Africans in like, you know, Europe and the New World is like a massive on top to like convince people like who otherwise had no contact, like mostly had no contact with African people, that like somehow there was this hierarchy and blah blah blah. It was so tied in with like these economic incentives, and you know, but it took a lot of human labor to do that. That's another thing I think it's interesting about the on top, is it does operate on this like very just like meta kind of like broad forces of history level, but like you can't really pull off an on top without real people like with names and social networks and certain like abilities to affect change in like the material world, to connive or maybe conspire to bring about that reality. Like it takes a lot of like ideological and economic and other kinds of legwork to like pull off the on top. You know, usually money's got to go into the on top to like really make it stick. Otherwise, it might not work. So
yeah, I think that scale is also like definitely an important consideration in terms of like how I think about it anyway. And yeah, and I think that I'm thinking of the line from like a Mahmoud Darwish poem, which I forget. I forget the Arabic, but he says he's like talking from the position of like an Israeli settler, and he says like, I want to live like an American within the walls of Jerusalem, you know. And I think like it's like that's
his Burger King.
Yeah, that's perfect, like in a way, because like I mean the whole idea of doing that, like obviously like if that were achieved, like if that were possible, like which is certainly a goal, like that would be the ultimate like on top to kind of superimpose this idea of like American comfort and like the non-existence of anything but this kind of like American vision of society, like onto something like a place like Jerusalem, right? Like to turn Jerusalem into like a like whatever, like an American suburb would be like the
like
ultimate
Beverly
on top.
Hills, yeah, or something like. Which is, I mean, like that's like I feel like a lot of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, like it is like Beverly Hills, like like that is actually the plan.
They already
like
did
Florida.
it to Jaffa,
Exactly. So yeah,
or partially,
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's an important thing. Well, all right.
Cool.
I think
That's
I think
that's all I got. Oh, I remembered. If you ever look it up, the thing about the CIA base here, it's in documents. It's called the Midwest Arms Depot, and it's here where I live. I guess I'm just doxing myself. It's in San Antonio, Texas. Like there is a huge like arms depot here that the CIA uses, and it's like from what I understand, it's like one of the only other bases that that like we know about in actual things, which like freaked me out when I was like, oh, that's just
that
sus.
is freaky. I think there was also a hub of the drone program early on under like Bush and Obama was one of those bases. I forget, was it Lackland? I forget which one. Lackland Air Force Base was like one of the three. I think there was one in New Mexico, and then there was like Creech and Nellis in Nevada, where most of that, and that was like by design, like top secret CIA type shit because of like who they were going after. And so yeah, long legacy in like those bases of like sus things happening. God knows how many guns going south.
It was, by the way, University in Chains by Henry Garreau that I was thinking of in that episode. Yeah, that's the one that I had mentioned. Yeah.
Great title.
I have one of his other books called Neoliberalism's War on Higher Education. That's on my like reading list that I'm gonna get to at some point after I finish all these other things.
Nice.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for having me on. Inshallah, we get another 100 episodes.
Inshallah.
That's thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot. Peace out.
Yeah, great having you on. Good luck with everything.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck out there. Stay vigilant in those halls.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Of course, I don't really believe in luck, but inshallah. Yeah.
All right. Later.
All right. Peace. All right. Now I think we can reconnect with with our Polish Gen Z friend Jonasz. Jonasz.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey.
Jak się masz?
Dobrze.
Dobrze.
And you? How are you?
Tak sobie. No, dobrze. Bardzo dobrze.
Tak sobie? Okay.
No, not tak sobie.
I hope the other guests were better than.
No, everyone is great. Tak sobie means like doesn't tak sobie mean like mid? Like
basically.
Yeah. Kind of. No. Bardzo dobrze all the way. Everyone's been great, but we're glad to have you on. How's it going? Are you in Poland right now?
No, I'm in Germany.
Oh, in Germany.
Immigrants. Yeah.
Oh, okay. East or west?
Yeah. West. I'm in the Ruhr Valley, so big sus vibes going on. You know?
Big industrial valley. Big industrial valley.
Yeah. I'm constantly coming across like ex-IG Farben buildings and Krupp and stuff.
Oh, Eagle Farm, like Nazi.
No. IG Farben.
Oh,
the monopoly firm that was set up by the Nazis.
IG Farben. Oh, IG Farben. IG Farben. Sorry,
I'm sorry.
The letters got me tripping. No, IG Farben. Okay. Oh, yeah. There's still like big buildings there of like they still exist as a company, right? Like they were. I think Bayer got spun off. A bunch of different huge companies got spun off from them, right after the war. BASF, Bayer, a couple others.
Yeah. Bayer is more in Leverkusen though, so that's not in the real Ruhr Valley. But basically. Yeah, but it's obviously all interlocked.
It
used to be a monopoly after all, yeah.
It is. How is Germany holding up these days in 2024?
Oh, it's a travesty.
Okay,
I would have been home much sooner if the trains came on time. It's really hard to witness the deindustrialization, I guess. Like,
So
you can
that
really feel it.
this is because of Nord Stream 2, right? The explosion of Nord Stream 2 that like
Well,
the gas
that's.
prices have made it uncompetitive to do business.
I mean, Germany has been like on the auf dem Abfallen as I'm blanking on the word, but basically been going downhill since at least like the 90s. Like and public transport is, I think, like the biggest symptom of it, because like it's been privatized but not fully. Like the states holds all the shares of the one transportation firm, but basically it's been underfunded. So it's like the public transportation in the US, I guess, like where they sell it
Not
and then
good.
just run it into the ground. Yeah.
Oh,
and
God.
like transportation is like the most visible symptom of like a country on decline, like in
geez.
Germany, and prices too. So yeah, it's not good.
I was there last fall. I was there in September, but I was only in Berlin. And I guess, I don't know, I guess I was there right before the vibes got very strange after October 7th with the ban on the protests and things like that. I mean, it felt a little bit like a bubble. They couldn't really get a good idea of what the entire rest of Germany was kind of like, you know, at that point. But,
Berlin was kind of isolated.
Yeah. But still kind of, I don't know. I guess the EU. What's happening in the EU right now in 7-7? We have the Left Alliance won in France. They won the parliamentary elections, and Labour won in the UK.
I think you might be mistaken.
Oh wait,
the Left Alliance with Mélenchon was in second place.
Oh, really?
They were in second place. Yeah, after the Nationalists.
Okay, I thought I saw them singing the Internationale this morning, but maybe that was a little too soon. I didn't get to check the news. I know they won the National Front won the Le Pen people won the first round, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
think the left just today the Mélenchon people squeaked it out very close.
I'm operating on old news.
Yeah, I haven't really been able to read about it yet, but lots of elections happening all of a sudden. And what is it? Orban
for European Parliament.
That's right. The Le Pen people won that.
Yeah. Well, in Germany, AfD was had big numbers, but whatever. Yeah, it's not like the European Parliament does anything, so whatever.
You know, it was interesting. When I was in Berlin last fall, I saw this graffiti near Alexanderplatz, and I'm forgetting the German, but it was eventually Das ist nicht einen Krieg or something like that. This is not our war, whatever it said. And I pointed out I was there with an SJ listener, Alyosha. Shout out Alyosha in Berlin. Cool dude, but I think I was walking by with him and I was like, oh, I noticed this. It says this is not our war. Does this mean there are leftist Germans that are not down with being pro NATO anymore because of the whole Nazi vibes of the Ukrainians and stuff? And I think he was like, oh no, those are AfD Faschler. They're MAGA people. They're they just love Putin because he's Chad and they so it's it's actually kind of here where it seems the only people are weird Jackson Hinkle or Steve Bannon weird reactionary populists that are kind of anti continuing the war in Ukraine. And I thought, naive little me, I thought maybe there was Die Linke or something was not on board with the continued sending Leopard tanks and all that stuff, especially after Nord Stream 2. But nobody there talked about Nord Stream 2. I was y'all know that we blew up your natural gas pipeline. We blew it up. It's so obvious that America did it.
There was this joint press conference with Scholz and Biden, and basically somebody asked Biden, as if Germany wasn't a sovereign state, what was going to happen about Nord Stream 2. That was before it was blown up, and Biden was like, "Nah,
not gonna happen.
This can't go on.
Yes,
we have to end it." And Scholz was standing right next to him, and he was saying nothing. He isn't the fucking elected leader of a sovereign country. It's
It's
Well,
rough.
yeah.
To get kind of domed by like Joe Biden and his like sundowning era, like he blows up your pipeline. He does he even remember doing it? Like, you know,
I have a funny anecdote about that because I think Scholz is domed by everybody. Like, I have a friend who works in security at the stadium in Dortmund. And with the European Championship going on in football, like, which is a big deal right now, everybody's talking about it. Again, Germany was cucked. We lost to Spain. Basically, he worked in security for the VIP, VIP part of the stadium. And he got all kinds of diplomats coming in. And for the last game, Olaf Scholz came in with his entourage, and my friend got to shake his hand, and he said it was wet and girly. He couldn't speak up. He couldn't look him in the eye. so like,
it's wet and girly. Wow,
you're looking into
humiliated.
Leadership qualities just not there. He can't even look like a lowly security guard in the eye.
Oh God!
Like his driver remarked about how he doesn't like to speak to people.
I think when I was there, it was actually ridiculous because I think he had just fallen and hit his eye and was wearing like a pirate or like SS like Obersturmführer like eye patch. Like every time I saw him on like the U-Bahn like on TV, he was wearing this like this very dramatic eye patch, but he just like bumped his like eye by like tripping and like falling over. He's like a pretty young guy, so I'm like, this guy seems like, I don't know, it's just straight. He seems like frail and just like, I don't know, like not quite in command of things.
I think his management team, like his PR team, thought this was going to be his Dark Brandon moment with his eye patch. Like, everybody's going to respect him now.
Everyone is going to get pirate pilled and be like, wow, he's actually so epic. We love our pirate premier, you know, our pirate president. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, they're free to try that. But how about you grew up in Poland?
Yeah.
Okay. What part of Poland?
Nowa Huta. Like,
I've been to Nowa Huta.
Yeah, I know. You told this.
Oh, I think I said something about it. Interesting. I guess for listeners who don't know, like Nowa Huta was built after the war outside of Krakow, right? And it was an industrial city that was like very much designed in a kind of like socialist realist like planned city kind of thing. We were taken on a tour there. And like that's how it was like presented to us as like this is the ultimate like communist like the communist dream town. Like it was tinged with a lot of like anti-Soviet kind of like this is where the statue of like Lenin used to be, and people they had to put guards out because they throw tomatoes at it. But now there's like a statue to Reagan. Like it was 2003.
Yeah,
it was 2003.
The main square is literally called Platz Ronald Reagana.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think I have pictures of it. That was, oh my God. Do they still have the lake there where you go on paddle boats? Like the little paddle boat?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Like, as long as they don't literally demolish it, it's still going to be cool. Like, I'm still going to love it. Like, the architecture is still Stalinka.
Wow.
Like, they can call it fucking Ronald Reagan, Kissinger's, Brzezinski's Avenue.
Zbigniew Brzezinski, like Avenue. Yeah.
Zbigniew Brzezinski. I don't give a fuck. I'm still gonna love it for its Stalinist origin. So whatever.
Yeah. So there was also that Vaida movie that was set in Nowa Huta, right? It was a Man of Steel or Man of Iron?
Yeah. No, I think
Man of Iron, not Man of Steel, Man of Iron, right?
No, yeah. Man of Marble was in Gdańsk, I think, and Man of Steel was in Nowa Huta. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah. That's cool. So that was so. You're Gen Z, so you were not born under the Polish People's Republic, right?
No, I'm afraid so.
But your parents were, I presume?
My mom, I'm actually half Polish only, but born in Poland.
Oh, okay.
So born to a German father, yeah.
Oh, okay. You like DDR?
No, he's West Germany.
Oh, I guess it was the 90s. So yeah, I'm thinking about travel visas and that. But yeah, okay, in the 90s.
Yeah, I think my dad, he actually lost a bet over a soccer game and ended up learning Polish. And that's how he came to Poland. And yeah, because apparently, like, that's how he tells it. at the student bar, there used to be like a poster, "Learn Polish," and it was like in the 90s, and Poland was, shock therapied into the ground, and everything was depression and gloom, and nobody wanted to learn Polish, especially not in West Germany. So this, I guess he lost the bet, and he had to learn Polish, and
wow,
everything went from there. Yeah,
that's wild. That's wild. So I guess they just had elections, and like the sort of like neoliberal EU people, like Donald Tusk, are back, right?
No, it's all the like. It's a cliche to say everything is the same in Uniparty and stuff, but in Poland, literally, you look into the funding of every single party. It's without the fail, some German NGO or foundation.
Damn. So every party is like German run.
Yeah. The liberal left parties, Razem, are literally like they are paid by the Rosa Luxemburg.
Rosa Luxemburg.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, man.
That's actually
we're losing the historic front, like the historic battle.
I wonder how many countries. Do you think that's the case in multiple former Warsaw Pact countries? That I could imagine it definitely being the case in like Hungary. Well, maybe a little with Orban, it's a little different, but like, but in Croatia, Croatia has those connections, right? With Germany.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
there wouldn't be a Croatia without the BND funding.
You're right. There definitely would not be. There definitely would not be. And I was actually shocked watching one like Yugoslav documentary like a couple of weeks ago, and I think it might have been Milosevic explaining that all the different presidents of the different republics, when they all met together, like in the 80s and stuff, they always spoke German with each other. Because it was like the one language that they all learned it like in school, but like so it wouldn't insult like the Slovenian president or somebody spoke Albanian. Like everyone just spoke German as kind of like the diplomatic language or something. But I thought about that as like it gave me chills a little bit as like like I don't know, just like
makes you rethink the Yugoslav Soviet split, right?
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, you kind of hate to see it, but they were up in there in a way that like definitely in America, like we didn't hear about that. It was just like, oh my god, like they're just like it was very mediated in the United States and became this like kind of like Bill Clinton. Like remember like Hillary Clinton flew into like Bosnia and then she said she got like shot at and like that was a thing in like 2016. And then of course the first lady under Trump is Slovenian, our number one public intellectual, Slavoj Žižek, our number one conceptual art icon, Marina Abramović, bassist of the number one band in the world from the critical years of 1991 to 1994. Croatian. From the Pacific Northwest. So no, it's just shout out to all the Yugoslavs out there. Like they, a lot of talented people and everything. But the things are a little more. It was always presented, I think, of America as this far away, like these little babushka, like little lady, like just this like one-dimensional stereotype of like.
That's very interesting because like there used to be lots of cultural exchanges between Poland and the Yugoslav Republic.
Yeah,
and like we have a bunch of cover albums of classic Jugotron songs in Polish.
Jugoton, I mean, both countries, excellent music during the Cold War. I think I've harped on this in the show before. And I did like 12 hours of Yugoslav mixes, and like I think I will give it to them as like the best country. Certainly the best communist country. I think like in the 70s and 80s. They were really cooking in Yugoslavia, like right up to the end, and even maybe all of Europe, like just so much and so interesting, like and like big production stuff, like cutting edge synth stuff, but then all these like DIY like post punk bands and like really like proto grunge, like before it happened to take off in the Pacific Northwest where all the Croatians are, and all that, but not to knock Poland, Budka Suflera and all that, like. There's some really good Polish. Czesław Niemen. We've put him in the show before.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody in America knows Czesław Niemen. I think it's criminal. That man, he could sing.
Yeah, I think like just like there are a bunch of classic Polish bands that had like English or like Anglophone albums. or they would translate an album. Like I'm thinking of Manam, for example.
Oh, Manam is so good. Yeah, like Polish Streets and whatever that album is.
Literally, like it's my favorite album. So, but I think they always have a thick Polish accent and stuff. It's just not going to work. Well, unfortunate, but
there's such a weird chauvinism around that of like, I remember that used to be a bigger deal of like, you wanted to be on like MTV and like you had an accent, like get out of here. Like you're not a real rocker. There's just a weird chauvinism about it of like Victor Tsoi and like all these other people like Manam and all these like really world-class like talents who actually go out of their way to create entire fucking albums in English. Like they go out of their way to like sing in English for you Anglo people, but we're just like like, and if they're not singing English, just forget about it. Like there was the Hungarian band Omega was one like that where they're like they should have been considered up there with like Queen or any of these other like late 70s bands, and they did entire albums like just English versions of like everything. I think they did tour in the UK. I don't know if they ever got to America though. But like nobody knew about them until Kanye sampled them like 2014. But anyways, is there anything? Sorry, I just like started asking you all these questions, but like, is there anything specific you want to ask us from Europe?
Well,
you're a European Gen Z correspondent.
The man on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Ruhr Valley, where all the vibes are off. Basically, I wanted to talk about something that's kind of interesting because, in my opinion, it's like the continuation of Gladio in Germany, but it's pretty much completely unknown outside of Germany, and even in Germany, it's been like when it all blew up in 2011, it was like, whoa, we have this, maybe I should say what I'm talking about, basically the National Socialist Underground, or NSU.
NSU, okay. Are these the guys that are kind of, a lot of them are in the military and the police force, and like they've gotten caught a couple times with like huge weapons caches like buried out in the forest? Is this that group?
Well, they are interlocks, but not really. I think what you're talking about is like a WhatsApp group. They were not even like a formal thing as far as I know, but basically the NSU was like a terrorist organization in scare quotes, and they have like 10 kills, so to say, on their, they killed 10 immigrants. No, 9 immigrants and one German policewoman. And what's fascinating about them is that all we hear in Germany is like the straightforward story that they were Nazis and racists and terrorists and they killed Turks. But when you look into it, it's actually mostly Kurdish people, and there are a bunch of connections to organized crime and the Grey Wolves in Turkey.
Oh, interesting.
And it's playing out in Germany, and like also I think 1 or 2 Greek victims, and actually there's layers to this because for example the murder in Cologne, the second one in Kolbstrasse is the place. There was a person present from the Verfassungsschutz, so the German Interior Secret Service.
Oh.
That spun off the Gehlen organization.
Okay, naturally. Yeah, the BND. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, we had I think digital forensics, like this fake open source intelligent British group that also exposed Cambridge Analytica. I think that digital forensics or something.
Yeah, I remember this group. Like I remember their big expose of Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, they have like kind of, I don't know.
Wasn't there a hacker with like blue hair that was a whistleblower? I vaguely remember this in like 2017.
I don't know. All I know is that they are so openly funded that they like you can look on their sites. So
right, so British funded.
No, American.
Oh, American funded. Okay.
Some NGOs or National Endowment or whatever. I don't know. But basically, they blew this whole thing up in the media that this Verfassungsschutz agent was at this murder scene. But And basically, it's a sort of limited hangout because in 2014, we had NSU Leaks, which is like a blog, release a bunch of the investigation reports with a bunch of the original testimonies, which were never released publicly. The guy who ran the blog lived in Thailand, so I guess he didn't fear persecution. And according to these witness testimonies, none of the witnesses even heard the shots. So this whole big OSINT thing and public scandal that there was a murder and somehow der Verfassungsschutz is involved didn't, like, in all likelihood didn't even happen there. The body must have been dumped or something. And it might have been involved like in criminal, like in crime or organized crime or shootings or whatever. And it was all tied back to this Nationalsozialistischer Untergrund terrorist group. And to make the psyop, so to say, perfect, there's like the first layer of the onion is that they were all, known to the Verfassungsschutz and under supervision, so to say, but still allowed for the murders, like the murders were still allowed to happen. But yeah, it's very
fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah,
so you think they stage these murders almost like, almost like a program to kill kind of a way, in the way that like Dave McGowan sort of suggested, maybe with like the Zodiac killings and others, that sometimes these would be kind of like gangland or crime related, like organized crime related murders, or like killing informants, but then could be sort of dressed up as like the sinister work of like a neo-Nazi cult, like, or like a satanic, like, lone wolf, like out there on the thing that you have to be scared of. So you're saying something like that might have been in play?
That's totally what sent my head spinning, because I looked all into this stuff, which was kind of hard to do because it's all been deleted, like because this blog was run very unprofessionally. It had like several domains and all of them are down, and you have to piece it together from various Internet Archive, backups. But I looked into that for like half a year, and that was all before I got into like before the algorithm, I guess, filtered me into Jimmy Fallon Gong's Twitter feed. Before I found out about any of the podcasts and about Gangland and a program like Dave McGowan and stuff, before I knew any of that. And I listened to your podcast and stuff and to other material, to The Farm, and I was like, that's exactly what I was looking into. Like,
right.
I guess it's like my pattern recognition of it. It's really freaky.
Well, I'm glad you found us, because like I remember having that years ago of like discovering one specific scandal and just being like, what the fuck? Like, oh my God. Like actually, like, I think the Franklin scandal was one for me. I'm just like, what? And then like Michael Aquino, like just the life of Michael Aquino, and the Iran Contra stuff. Like if you really start reading like, what was exposed about it, it's just like this endless fucking labyrinth of like susness and like criminality and evil and all these things. And like, it makes your head spin. But happy you found us, because that's a big thing of mine, is trying to flesh out like the modern Gladio, and like because I don't believe these networks just like dissipated in 1991. In fact, I think they like, I don't know, in a way like sort of like went legit, or like just became a part of like the ruling system across the world, and the former communist countries, or kind of ruled in conjunction with like mafias, I think. And, transnational capital, capitalist institutions, like all these sus banks. But it's still definitely like, I think it's not something you self-abolish. Like if you're these people that won the Cold War, these, capitalists and the CIA and everything. And like, I think it's been elements of it. It's like you can see in Yugoslavia, like the sort of Gladio wing of like the Ustaše people that were hiding out in West Germany and doing random terrorist shit. Like they finally actually got an opportunity to like achieve their insane vision. You could say the same thing about the Azov battalion in Ukraine. Another like, pretty much you can consider them kind of like Gladio assets, who like, because, rather than having like the end of the Cold War, like abolish their sort of usefulness, or like have them just sort of evaporate, because like they're, the great struggle is over and like the good guys won. Instead, they actually get to like enact their like insane fascist like things that were like humored for decades, but like not exact. It's hard for me to believe that like the CIA or British intelligence like necessarily deeply felt about Slava Ukraini, like the ancient root race of the Aryans must rise up, or the Ustache master Slavs, like but which are basically Hitler's categories.
That's only for total idiots like Johnson to really believe. Because I think he's a true believer. Like he's giving them like applause at the fucking, I don't know how the parliament is called in Britain, but whatever.
Yeah, the parliament. Yeah, no, exactly.
Right,
These like meatheads that are just like, bringing like Franjo Tujman in. It's like this great man who's just, like, this fucking whack job, like insane, like flag kissing fascist. But
it's weird. Like you were talking about Biden before, and I almost feel like that's the only thing that like he does think about and does remember. Like not to get like
like the Cold War alliances.
Like I was watching him recently, and he was like going on about how like NATO, like just ask anyone about what I've done with NATO. Who else is gonna do this? Like that's why he has to stay in it. It's like protect NATO.
Yeah,
it's weird. Like but that's like really like it's very much like at the forefront of some people's minds, I think.
Oh, everybody, and like it's hard for me to believe that like they say that like Trump's gonna like abolish NATO, and I'm like, no, he's fucking not. Like, no, he's not. He might try to take it in a slightly different Gladio direction, and maybe empower some different like players in that network, and like I could see a shift in tactics, perhaps, like picking a different target than Russia. Like it's not like they don't want to target. But like maybe instead of Russia, they can really focus on China or Iran, or et cetera. And that's got to be my pessimistic take on what happens if Bannon and Flynn and all these guys like get back in the White House. Is like they're going to go hard at different targets, and it's all still like Gladio all the way down. And maybe there will be this wave in Europe of like right wing populist like. AfD and like
seems like it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe as a European, you have like your finger on the pulse more, or have a better sense of that. But it certainly seems like that's already kind of here. Like that, there's like a right wing populist wave in Europe.
It's brutal, and it's just like if the only thing stopping it is like pro NATO like austerity neoliberalism. It's like okay, like I don't know how long that's gonna hold. Because like people's lives are getting worse.
I don't actually subscribe to calling the AfD populist. I guess they're demagogues and stuff, but
I would throw heavy air quotes of like pseudo populist,
But like also it's not like the AfD. Like if you focus on the AfD, like all the other parties get a free pass. Like there's not a single mainstream party except for Die Linke, the left party, which hasn't, tried in the past several months. Like this has been going on the last several months, and it's been getting worse and worse to seem tough on immigration. Like it's incredible. Like if I came back from a vacation which lasted like maybe 3 months or something, I wouldn't recognize Germany again. Like in an incredibly fast time,
really?
the Overton window, I guess, has shifted so far to the right, and like
wow.
And the populists are obviously gaining ground and stuff, but like all of Germany is becoming turbo fascist.
And then the Israel Zionism thing on top of that, like simultaneously, is just so wild. Like,
well, it seems like it kind of feeds into it, though.
I mean,
like, these immigrants are making us anti-Semitic,
right? It's like a perfect convergence of the we're so culturally like good now, like we've internalized the Holocaust guilt, blah blah blah.
A truly bizarre thing that I
blaming it all on the immigrants. Like it's some crazy psychology. Like
a truly bizarre thing that I saw today was like a bunch of like Turkish like nationalists marching through the streets in Germany chanting of like get refugees out of our country. I feel like it's kind of like a stereotype of the Turkish nationalist who lives in Germany, but it was like a really surreal sight. And I mean, it coincides with what's been going on in Turkey with like basically
Yeah.
kind of like pogrom, like quasi pogroms against Syrian refugees, like really
Yeah.
insane, like disgusting stuff. Like
I wouldn't say this person is my friend, but the cousin of a friend who lives in Turkey. Actually, I saw him posting like in his status on Instagram, like our guest friendliness is over. Like now, and he's like posting with his flip knife, like we're gonna get you, like get the fuck out of here.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But like Turks, also there was like this scandal, I guess, like this one Turkish player was holding up the wolf sign.
Oh, the wolf. The wolf sign. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
And I was watching this. Actually, I think the guy I was watching would have fit into the Turkish march through Germany for expulsion of immigrants. He was like, yeah, it's the Grey Wolves. They are involved with this party. I forget how it's called. Something with M. And in the 70s, they were terrorists, and
they were Gladio terrorists, like connected to the weird attempted assassination of John Paul II. And
that's correct.
Which was like sort of used to like psyop John Paul II and being like the KGB did it, like you have to, because he wasn't actually as like, despite being very you would know, like anti-communist Polish Pope, he was like very conscious of like not like going too hard, like he was gonna try a softer. So Bill Casey came storming in there, be like, come on, let's do it, let's get guns in there, and he's like, no, I don't want to be seen with you. And like shortly thereafter, like an MK like Grey Wolf like patsy just like runs up and like shoots him, and then all the like spy people like Casey and his people come to the Pope and are like, well, we have it on good authority that there was a whole manufactured Bulgarian KGB connection to like Ali Agca, the shooter, that I think was like it was some weird shit. And like I don't think the Soviet Union in the early 80s, I guess that was still under, I forget if it was still Brezhnev or Andropov, but it's still like the old more hardliners, like I don't think they would have just been like, yeah, we're gonna kill this Pope because we're sickos. Like it was like it would have been a really stupid move to like kill the Pope like that. But also like, why would they use the Grey Wolf? Like it all stinks, right? It's like, oh, the Gladio. I think there's good evidence that maybe they killed the Pope before that, John Paul I, who was like a little more of a reformer, and then what was it? Just about 33 days.
John Paul II also was like talking about communism in the 60s as like an amiable goal. So like he was
like
talking
we could coexist kind of thing.
He was talking about primitive communism fully. He was like I think I wish I had the quote, but basically communism and the Bible are fully compatible.
Interesting.
He made at some point he made like 180-degree switch. It's really, and to your point about the Grey Wolves being Gladio, that's like the 1 degree of separation between the Nationalsozialistischer Untergrund NSU and Gladio, literally Gladio, because like there were actually Grey Wolves like people involved. So.
And if they're killing Kurdish immigrants, like there might be like some kind of dispute between Kurds and Turks, because there's a lot. There's many like in Germany. Yeah. I saw all over Berlin. There was like a lot of YPG like graffiti, and then like obviously a huge Turkish presence.
That's all German students.
So everyone in Germany like loves the Heckin YPG. I take it. They seem pretty popular.
Yeah, I like that's the sticker I saw. I think YPG and Antifa are pro climate justice or something.
Oh my god!
Like
it all comes back to solidarity. They're amazing. Yeah. Like just helping the U.S. steal all of Syria's oil and like building an open air like concentration camp for quote unquote ISIS people and their families. It's wonderful. It's true socialism. Lenin would be proud. Anyways, but no, that's very interesting. I do want to get to, we've got 8 people in the queue yet who've been very patient. So I do want to get to our next person, but it was great talking to you, Jonasz.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for the great podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
All right.
Peace.
All right. Peace.
See you. Bye-bye.
Oh,
Do widzenia.
Do widzenia.
There we go. All right. So we're gonna bring on Juliana.
I'm gonna leave by myself.
Let me just grab a yerba mate.
Dimitri's grabbing a yerba mate. Juliana, you can unmute yourself, I think, if you're there.
Hello, my name is Jacob, by the way. I think I'm on my friend's phone.
Okay, all right, word. Nice to meet you, Jacob. Okay. I was like a woman, but no.
We have a woman here.
You're not half wrong. So.
Okay, all right, word.
We got Sue here.
Nice.
What's up?
Nice. We finally got. Well, it is Jacob here calling in, but we do have a woman in the room, so we have the first woman to appear on the stream.
Excellent. How's it going?
Going good. I've been waiting here. I'm excited to talk to you guys.
So are we. Yeah. Thanks for waiting. Yeah. See,
of course.
We're taking a maximalist approach.
It's like we're trying, for those who are in the waiting room, like we're definitely trying to get to you. Sometimes when you call into these things, maybe it doesn't work out, but we're trying. But yeah, so what's on your mind?
Yeah.
Well, right off the back, I was gonna ask. So I was trying to go to the first Noid FM showing, but I had to come out here to New York City because I'm moving. I just moved to New York City.
Okay.
I was wondering if you guys were ever thinking about taking it elsewhere outside of LA. I know it's in its
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that.
About doing Noid at NYC. I don't think it will be. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Dimitri, in terms of what your plans are. I don't think it'll be like quite the rave type thing with but I think where you're going to do like an event of sorts.
I think
in New York. Maybe soon.
I think maybe soon. I was actually thinking because also something has come up. Like tentatively, there's some, like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of Noided heads in Canada that want me to like DJ while playing Noided videos at like a rave or something like that, which might happen in September. And so either when I would go there and be on the East Coast, perhaps September, maybe a New York show, or alternatively, because I think it would be so good. Maybe maybe right before the election. That would be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not committing to that, but that would also be maybe kind of also near Halloween too, right? I mean, it's kind of appropriate. But I think, Khalid, you're right that really like both Noideds have been somewhat different from each other in terms of structures. And I feel like every Noided is going to be like a little bit dependent upon like specific circumstances of like who's participating. So I think this one would be this would be the first true Subliminal Jihad live show, with the both of us.
Because I would be there. Yeah,
you would be there.
I have not been at the other two.
Yes.
So yeah.
But actually, I mean, like we're not just like we actually have a like this has been in the works of coming to NYC. We do have like a venue, like a bar event space that we could throw this at that I think can hold like a couple hundred people, like at least maybe 150, 200 people or something like that. And we could do more, like, and have a stage and kind of like a proper kind of a little bit of like a club setup, and do a show, and then probably like close out the night. I got to get on those decks. Like, I got to do it. And I think we have actually one other Noided convert that I met at a DBS1 rave who, we started talking about Gaza, just like in the rave room. And then we started hanging out. It turns out he's a very talented. Yeah, if you listen to the Noid FM guest mix, Nate Huther, who did, that was pretty much a vinyl, like no training wheels, like, he's a vinyl DJ. Excellent taste. In fact, generously gave me some of his lossless library, which I used at Noided LA2. But I think he is down to go vinyl. We'll have to see for sure. But that would be kind of a chill vibe. It wouldn't be like hard, kind of a hard rave, but more of a like a party, but with well curated vibes. Because I think there is something about like the sort of
the techno, the noited vibe. There's something that naturally fits, I think, with both of them. Like they sync up naturally, and especially with like the visuals and stuff. So I think we would Khaled and I think would come up with kind of our own presentation. You know, something probably more.
I'm not sure
more
like what, because
involved.
I've always been like very like, how will we do an SJ live show? Because I feel like it's not, and a lot of the time, like I've been to like podcast live shows before, and I thought like that they sucked. So I'd want to like do something that like didn't suck, like in general. That's something that like I feel is good to do. Something that doesn't suck. So yeah, I'm not sure like what form it would take, but I don't know. We figure something out because obviously there's an audience for it. So I feel like we could come up with something that would be good.
I think especially given just everything that's happening right now, and I think especially if we're doing kind of the witchy, Sam Hain October season, and right before who the fuck knows what's going to be happening at the end of October, right? Like it could be Coconut Queen is like about to win, like we're about to have a crazy couple months. Like honestly, I think it's going to be very wacky, and I think like what I've tried to do in the two like experimental really noited so far, kind of trying to discover like how can you make an event that's not just like I'm gonna stand on stage and riff like on a microphone and like get drunk and like I don't know like play a game or like not make it just like an improv. Like I know a lot of podcasts like, hey, that's like a natural thing to do if like podcasting is like talking, so you go up and do stand up. But I think the multimedia aspect is like very critical and like interesting, and I think we could incorporate a kind of like presentation, especially with Khaled's formidable background in dramaturgy. I think combining our forces together, like we could come up with something more like a live SJ experience that incorporates maybe a couple different mediums and takes everybody on like a journey, and then everyone can just like vibe out and like dance afterwards. You know what I mean? Like it would be kind of like that. Yeah. But I think I think like we might just want to do like a whole venue takeover and like plan the night out according to our whims and triumph. But I know there's a lot of people that have asked about Noited NYC, and they're into it. So yeah, I think
someone in the chat says the SJ sketch comedy experience. Yeah, we'll be doing improv. We'll be asking for suggestions from the audience. Shout out a word, and we'll just do kind of something. Yeah.
A neoliberal disaster or crypto fashion nightmare.
Yeah.
We'll get that right up in the cut, and then it'll all be to the moon with us. No, probably not. But,
probably not. Yeah,
probably not. No, we're not going to get these like weird glowing Dime Square write-ups of like every lame party that happens. Like, wow, this is such an interesting scene. Like, they're really like. I thought it'd be funny if like some LA journalist like showed up to Noited LA 2 and then wrote this like weird glowing article about how it's like it's the locus of like a new scene and that, like what I mean. Like that. There's no way that happens organically. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like an inside job if like somebody writes a profile of like a Sovereign House party or something like that. Even though there was a vibe, there was a scene, it was the heart of something, and it was tight. So like,
yeah. I mean, so maybe there will be dancing at this thing, but you won't see me dancing, just FYI, and you won't, and if like alcohol is served at the establishment, I'll be attending under extreme protest.
Actually, you know what? I think the way this
juice bar, tea bar,
we can definitely offer non-alcoholic. I had a non-hawk like list on the bar menu at Noited too. It said on hawk, like energy drinks, Gatorade, things like that. But actually, I think we are. I don't know what the Islamic jurisprudence would say, but I think in this scenario, LA is a funny place where you basically have to like pay to play venues to like throw events there. But in New York, there's like so many bars and venues that like, and everyone drinks so much that like that's sort of not the vibe. So I think the bar would be selling alcohol. We would have nothing to do with that, and we would sell tickets, and then it's separate. So there's no intermingling of Koof Juice like profits with the specific Noited event. You know what I'm saying?
That definitely helps.
There's a separated
definitely
wall.
helps.
Yeah,
that definitely helps.
So
I don't know if that's 100% halal. I'm sure the Saudis or the Emiratis would make some kind of excuse for why like it's okay to have alcohol at your event.
Well,
But,
it's even
yeah,
in a separate like room from the event space, so there's even like a bit of a door, so that it just feels like, oh, it's
yeah.
like it's not happening in the room where we're doing the thing. You know, you have to go outside to the
Yeah,
dirty
that's-
coof juice, but no, it's actually a nice bar.
Right. That's
but
the
like
Zimmy section. Where anyway, yeah.
See, we're,
sorry.
we're,
Okay.
we're doing all these things, but yes.
So we talked a lot
we're-
about a pretty much like a yes or no question. The answer is like
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Definitely
we don't know
gonna
exactly when, but
happen.
like we will. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could maybe be September if we could make it work, but it also could be in October. But probably I would say before the election. I'm tempted to say because
Yeah, I
it's
think
just
I could make that work. It depends.
it's a
like,
charged
what,
season,
schedule it is, but
you
like
know?
I think I could make that work. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Alrighty. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think something else I was gonna ask was about Alex Gray.
Oh yeah,
Are you guys familiar?
the guy who
Yeah, we talked about him, I think, in a Q&A once. And
Yeah.
because I think this kind of goes back to Dimitri refusing to acknowledge that Tool is like perceived by many of its fans as being psychedelic, or considered
That's
to be
right,
psychedelic
yeah.
rock. And Alex Gray's art is a big part of like the psychedelic vibe of Tool, I feel. But so I'm definitely familiar with him. In fact, like I feel like I've been to like an Alex Gray like art gallery or something back when like he was like really cool, like at one point. Like, it's not something I was like, yeah, I love Alex Gray, I gotta go there, but something I got like dragged to by some people back in undergrad. But so I'm definitely familiar with him.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard people have told me random. I know about the cadaver store. Like I remember looking into him a bit and being like, and he does pop up like and does art things, and like he's kind of. I don't know if his thing is kind of faded, but I feel like he did have that like art world clout for a while. Of like art people were like, yeah, he's cool. Like I don't know.
He has like an exhibit upstate here in New York, and I think we popped by to visit it. Me and my fiance here, and there was some sort of like weird like solstice event going on. I looked into it. There's some sort of like weird sex cult. I mean, as to be expected with the new age vibes, but
upstate New York is just how they are.
Yeah, it's a sus place upstate New York.
Low key freakiest, like one of the freakiest places in the U.S. that like you would never like think about as being like super weird and freaky, but like it's where like so much of like American and like occult tradition like came out of.
It's very
the Mormons,
interesting.
Like
it's very interesting. 'Cause I almost
spiritualism.
feel like New York City obviously is also sus, and like it's like just a big like people just forget that upstate New York even exists.
Yeah,
like
perfectly an afterthought.
But yeah, it's like totally disguised by
those like
it's hiding in
Mokosh
plain sight.
Ukrainians are up there like worshiping, like
Yeah,
yeah.
the Catskills are sus. Anyway,
The Catskills, yeah. Anyways,
I think it was an NYC that he had like some kind of exhibition back when like years ago when I was an undergrad, and still like a Tool fan of sorts, or like kind of just coming out of my Tool phase.
Yeah, I'm forgetting if there's anything more acutely like sus that maybe had come out about him or that I'd heard from people that were like, oh yeah, like I don't know. So I
The
can't say
sex
for
cult
sure.
thing
but
is
the
like
sex
kind
cult.
of
I mean,
new.
He has some sort of ties. I'm blanking on the name. I tried to look into the Q&A on the Discord to see what I asked. He has some sort of connection to someone who's one of the forefathers of theosophy, yes, or like passed down through the generations. I don't.
Oh, interesting.
Theosophical like royalty.
It would be so funny if it was like Rock Von Iyer.
I can't remember that right now, but yeah. I don't know. I just got very, very strange vibes from the exhibit. That's what all I really had to mention. It's just I don't know, something they had like the secret writing, like they had like texts that were on like all the doors that you touch and stuff. Like Allison Gray, the wife, like has her own language that nobody knows what it means. I don't know. Very, very, very strange vibes.
What do they call that? Like the starlight, like star seed language or like light language? Like the TikTok thing. Like how do you like? It's like basically like Crunchy speaking in tongues, basically. Yeah. But no, I mean that totally tracks for like art world, like people who love rituals. Like they do love ritual. People in the art world love rituals. Like they love.
I mean, yeah.
I
like
mean,
art
rituals
and
are
ritual basically
they're interesting.
are like
yeah.
deeply connected, especially like in like since the 60s and 70s, like there basically was like a ritual turn in like the discourse of art and in art itself that like can't be like undone. Like, that's basically like the origin of performance art is like so deeply rooted in like all this kind of like Victor Turner, Joseph Campbell-y, like ritual theory. Like they are just so steeped in that stuff. That I was just reading an interview with Sarah Rule, who's like a pretty normie mainstream playwright, and she was going on and on about how like like theater is holy, like theater is a ritual, like it's like pretty, it's like it's ubiquitous, I mean obviously it's kind of like older than that, but I think there's definitely been it's like on a certain cast, I think, during that time, like during the we've talked about like Richard Schechner before and stuff like that. It definitely I think it is interesting that like that's something that I said early. Like I feel like talking about this early on in the show is like it's interesting how like Marina Abramovich like made that like big splash among like Pizzagate type people, because like when they see like basically the most famous performance artists like in the United States or really in the world arguably, like they're like, this is a ritual, like this is and I'm not saying that that's like that she's actually like this kind of like Satanist who eats like people or whatever, but like I just feel like people have like a lack of literacy around that type of thing.
Well, it's like she wouldn't disagree. She wouldn't deny that it's not a like what I mean. Like
exactly.
She would be like, yeah, it is a ritual.
Yeah.
Like
I guess there for some people like for I guess maybe for Alex Jones I would say like the term ritual has like a negative connotation or something, whereas like brushing your teeth is like a ritual,
like blood sacrifice,
like praying is a ritual, like.
But I still do think even like Aaron Moulton when he was on, and he like who has hung out with Marina Abramovich, and he himself is like very interested in rituals and like magic and these kind of occult traditions. But like I don't think he like denied that like I think what he said is she's doing political witchcraft, like, and that's like the best way to describe like what she does. Like it she is doing rituals, like she is like a sincere occultist, and like she does weaponize it for like political ends, like for the people, for kind of like her sponsors and like her patrons and stuff, which is like really, I think, you could easily miss the forest for the trees in that like email about the spirit cooking party with the Podesta brothers and all these other famous people. But I think it's still, it's like, they're eating babies, but like even if they're not eating babies, it's interesting and like fucking weird. It like doesn't bode well for like, should I like trust these guys? They want to go to like a weird performative, like even just like a fake staged like blood cum drinking ritual, like at Marina Abramovich's apartment. These like, they're like all these Washington people are so nerdy and like, styleless. Like they don't. I guess Tony Podesta was like a bit of an art freak. But
I just think like it has to be approached like on a basis of what's like. You're absolutely right. Like it is, and I think she would fully acknowledge that. I think everything that you said about it just now is true. But I think it needs to be like approached like through like I guess maybe a focus on what it actually is and on like the event itself and what like effect that has, rather than like seeing like certain iconography and then based on that like inferring that like there's cannibalism of children or something. But anyway, sorry. What were you gonna say, Jacob? I feel like you got cut off.
No, I was just looking for some general discourse on that, and I think that filled it up pretty well, because I just don't know. I feel like I don't know enough about like it's easier to go for like the Alex Jones type vibes than to really look into it. So I appreciated the comments on it. That's really all I was looking for. And I think my questions have been answered here. And I wanted to say on my fiance here got me some of your guys' merch for my birthday, so I appreciate it.
Good gift.
What did you get? Which one did you get?
Got the CIA Grateful Dead crew neck.
Hell yeah, that's what's up. Psychedelic Warlord.
Love that series, and love Sus Psychedelics. Those two. I mean, I had a big like experimental psychedelic phase when I was a bit younger. I'm only 18. I'm part of the Gen Z, but
oh wow, okay. Bring in the young crowd. All right. I feel like a lot of people who listen to this podcast like have had an experience, like had a period in their life with like psychedelics. So contra the skeptics. Like
I like that. And I used to be like a big like Hamilton Morris head, and I really like your guys' deconstruction of all of his suspicious bullshit. So yeah.
Thanks. I'm glad you appreciate it. I'm glad you.
That was
felt like it was important.
Very much necessary. Yeah, and I think that again, it's similar where like art is like part of like a big part of society. It's like a big part of like the cultural landscape. It's like it's significant and like I think it's like valuable to engage with it. But it's something where like I think it's a good instinct to be like, what is going on here? Like what actually is happening on the surface? Like what is the like ideology that's shaping this stuff. I'm wondering if it was the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors that you were talking about. Yeah. Right.
It's very easy there to not really engage with it critically because you're like, oh wow, this is like it's beautiful. I mean, like it takes very like technical talent. Like some of the paintings there were 12 feet long, 8 feet high. It's very easy to just get wooed by it. But there was some sus vibes going on there.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy you're staying vigilant. You know, you're doing well.
The fiance helped me out a lot on that. I was kind of
well, you know, we're the #1 wife guy podcast in real life. Like,
yes,
you know, not the Incel Pair Politics call. We're actually for the real wife guys. Just want to hang out with their wife and listen to SJ. You know,
that's what we've been doing.
Beautiful. We love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely great. Yeah, congrats to you guys on your engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'll let you guys get on. I know you got some. But
we got a few still in here. We'll get to them. But all right, peace out.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.